Chapter 1471. Blazing Hell Fragment. Zhao Feng was shocked. He couldn't help but think of the final treasure of the Divine Nation auction, which was also a fragment of Blazing Hell. Back then, the Blazing Hell fragment had been auctioned for a sky-high price of 110 million. Who would have thought that this burning heaven sea actually hid a fragment of Blazing Hell? Although Zhao Feng had an ancestral artifact fragment, who would complain about having too many of such treasures? In terms of offensive power, the Blazing Hell fragment far surpassed the time-based ancestral artifact fragment in Zhao Feng's hands. What's the situation now? Zhao Feng's interest was piqued and he took the initiative to ask. The ancestral artifact fragment was first discovered by Vermilion Bird Pavilion. As an enemy faction, Swiftwind Gate has spies among them, so Swiftwind Gate also knows about this. Currently, the two largest factions fighting over the Blazing Hell fragment are Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swiftwind Gate. Tang Bai said with a smile. The ancestral artifact fragment had been discovered a month ago. In addition, the information was kept confidential, so the Holy Land of the Tianhe region did not know about it. Even if they knew, they would not come so quickly. In this 1 month, Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swiftwind Gate did their utmost to rope in all the experts on their side. They even contacted a few god lords that lived in seclusion in the mountains and paid an enormous price to request their assistance. For example, God Lord Vast Soul was not a member of Vermilion Bird Pavilion, but a good friend of the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master. Originally, there were only these two factions fighting over the ancestral artifact fragment. But because their attitudes were too unyielding, their attitude towards outsiders was to either temporarily submit to them or kill them. Thus, I drew these people over to form a third faction. Tang Bai raised his face slightly, a little proud. Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swiftwind Gate's attitudes were unyielding and their restraints were strong. Even if they managed to obtain an ancestral artifact fragment, these people wouldn't be able to obtain any benefits. On the other hand, Tang Bai's temporary team was more casual and unrestrained. It only required them to work together in the face of the enemy. In addition, if it was Tang Bai's team that obtained the ancestral artifact fragment, it would depend on their own abilities. These kinds of humane rules made it very easy for Tang Bai to rope in a lot of people. Of course, there was another indispensable reason, and that was Tang Bai's identity. You are from the God Sealing clan, right? Zhao Feng looked at Tang Bai and blurted out. If he was a nameless person, how could he allow other divine masters to follow him? Moreover, in the previous battle, although Tang Bai had not used his full strength and had only attacked casually, Zhao Feng could tell that his strength was not to be underestimated. That's right, I'm a member of the God Sealing clan. I was out adventuring and happened to come here. I didn't expect to encounter such a good thing. Tang Bai opened his folding fan and fanned it slightly. The God Sealing race was ranked 14th among the 10,000 ancient races. Even the stronger races would find their sealing methods a headache. As for Zhao Feng, if he temporarily joined Tang Bai's team, he would also be able to obtain a profound God Sealing clan's secret technique. No matter how one looked at it, this was a good deal. Everyone, I estimate that it won't be long before the ancestral artifact fragment appears. Even if it doesn't, Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swiftwind Gate will force it out. So be prepared. Tang Bai looked at everyone, his expression a little more serious. A month had passed since the ancestral artifact fragment had been discovered. Even if the ancestral artifact fragment didn't appear, the other two factions would still search for it so that even more experts wouldn't arrive. At that time, even Swiftwind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion would find it very difficult to gain an advantage. Zhao Feng exchanged a few words with the other two god lords, becoming somewhat familiar with them. The black-armored man was a First Heaven, an expert from outside the Tianhe zone. He did not bother with trifles. The violet-robed old woman was a peak First Heaven and had a rather cold attitude toward Zhao Feng. Zhao Wang, here's something for you. Tang Bai took out a crystal pearl and handed it to Zhao Feng. This crystal pearl was branded with the secret sealing art of the God Sealing race. Many thanks. Zhao Feng faintly smiled. In terms of pure sealing techniques, not even the second-ranked ancient shaman race was a match for the God Sealing race. Zhao Feng found a random place in the Divine Kingdom and entered the space-time robe. BZZ. As his mind poured into the crystal pearl, endless information flowed into Zhao Feng's mind. After 10 whole days, Zhao Feng finally digested all this information. This secret art was called the Heavenly Closure Sealing Art, a top-class divine-level art. After using it, one could completely conceal one's divine body and soul energy, and it could even seal treasures with particularly powerful ripples of energy. As expected of the God-sealing race, their sealing arts are truly profound. Zhao Feng was pleasantly surprised. The Heavenly Closure Sealing Art could not only conceal his energy, but also seal the Dream God Eye. In the following period of time, Zhao Feng stopped refining the ancient dream realm and focused on cultivating the Heavenly Closure Sealing Art. A year quickly passed within the space-time robe, but only around 3 days had passed in the outside world. Heavenly Closure Seal. Zhao Feng's hands began to form seals, and layers of white rings of light began to float out and revolve around his body. Gradually, these white rings of light began to shrink, seeping into Zhao Feng's divine body and soul. On the side, the Black Destruction Dragon stared at Zhao Feng. It realized that Zhao Feng's energy was getting fainter and fainter. If it didn't stare at Zhao Feng, it would find it very difficult to notice that there was someone else here. Very good. I can already use it for the basics. Zhao Feng could now perfectly seal his energy. This was mainly used so that others would not be able to sense him. Once he attacked, his energy naturally could not be concealed. Zhao Feng continued to cultivate, and the sealing art he used got stronger and stronger. One day, Zhao Feng used the Heavenly Closure Sealing Art on his left eye. Buzz. BZZ. Within the God Eye dimension, a white ring of light revolved around the dreamy silver ball and gradually shrank. The origin energy exuded by the dreamy silver ball was kept at bay by this white ring of light. At this moment, Zhao Feng sensed that the power of his left eye had somewhat declined. But he was extremely happy. After the God Eye awakened, sealing it became extremely difficult, but Tang Bai's God-sealing race secret art was effective. In this way, the chances of others discovering his 9th God Eye were greatly reduced. One day, a scout hurried back to the Divine Kingdom. Lord Tang Bai, it's bad. God Lord Crazy Sword is being pursued by the experts of Vermilion Bird Pavilion. The half-step God Lord went to Tang Bai's residence and reported the news. Move out. Tang Bai immediately rushed out and called out, his voice echoing throughout the Divine Kingdom. God Lord Crazy Sword was a peak first heaven, an expert of the Sword Dao, and second only to him in Tang Bai's team. Even the second heaven God Lord Vast Soul was not enough to put God Lord Crazy Sword in danger. But now, God Lord Crazy Sword had sent a distress signal. Thus, Tang Bai immediately gathered everyone. This is related to our chances of getting the ancestral artifact fragment. If you are not willing to help, I will not force you. Tang Bai looked at Zhao Feng's group and coldly said. When he was trying to recruit Zhao Feng, he had said that he only needed Zhao Feng to fight a major battle with him. It was obvious that he had said the same thing when recruiting the others. But the major battle Tang Bai spoke of was for the ancestral artifact fragment, not now. God Lord Crazy Sword is a powerful God Lord that our team cannot do without. The black-armored man was brimming with fighting intent. This Vermilion Bird Pavilion thinks that we're easy to bully. We'll definitely make them taste some pain this time. The violet-robed old woman's face darkened as she began to exude a dangerous soul energy. Zhao Feng agreed. He would not refuse a battle that wasn't too dangerous. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tang Bai led his team out of the Divine Kingdom to reinforce God Lord Crazy Sword. All the members below the God Lord level were on a medium-sized warship. This special warship was extremely resistant to fire and had many arrays on it. When half-step God Lords worked together, they could unleash the power of a God Lord. Boom! Bang! Crash! In the distance, heaven-shaking booms accompanied by waves of fire surged toward them. Zhao Feng's left eye pierced through the waves of fire and spotted a domineering man wielding a golden sword. There was no need to say that this was God Lord Crazy Sword. God Lord Crazy Sword's body was surrounded by countless streams of sharp golden sword chi, and he transformed into a streak of sword light that pierced through the world. Behind him were 4 people, all God Lords of Vermilion Bird Pavilion. Other than God Lord Vast Soul, there was also a fiery-robed elder of the second heaven, while the other 2 were first heaven. If not for the fact that God Lord Crazy Sword was extremely fast and skilled in fleeing, he would have already died to the enemy. God Lord Crazy Sword. Tang Bai bellowed as he rapidly approached God Lord Crazy Sword. Zhao Feng and the others arrived. Only now did God Lord Crazy Sword stop. The God Lords of Vermilion Bird Pavilion also slowed down. What's going on? Why would Vermilion Bird Pavilion send out such a large force to deal with God Lord Crazy Sword? Tang Bai was rather surprised. The fiery-robed elder was none other than the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master. Tang Bai, take your people and leave, or else I won't be polite today. The fiery-robed elder looked down on them, exuding a scorching pressure. Do you think we're afraid of you? Tang Bai's expression turned serious. Although they had no second heaven experts on their side, Tang Bai, God Lord Crazy Sword, and the violet-robed old woman were all peak first heaven. Tang Bai's strength was unfathomable while God Lord Crazy Sword was extremely powerful. In addition, Tang Bai's side had one more God Lord than Vermilion Bird Pavilion. At this moment, Tang Bai's team of half-step God Lords arrived. Strike! The fiery-robed elder coldly called out. Tang Bai's team members were all stunned. The 2 sides were clearly of similar strength, and Tang Bai's side was even a little stronger. But Vermilion Bird Pavilion's people still immediately announced that they would strike. Was Vermilion Bird Pavilion not afraid that if they fought to the death with Tang Bai's team, Swift Wind Gate would take advantage of them? A moment later, Zhao Feng, Tang Bai, and the violet-robed old woman grimaced. Broom. Waves of fire surged in the distance as a powerful divine power energy pressed forward. In the blink of an eye, 5 figures appeared in the sky. The blue-robed elder at the front was surrounded by white winds, his aura terrifying to behold. Swift Wind Gate? Tang Bai blurted out in alarm. At this moment he understood. It turned out that Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swift Wind Gate had temporarily allied together, planning to first eliminate the threat that was him. Brother Zhao, I didn't think that you wouldn't die and would even join Tang Bai's team, but this was also a wrong choice. An azure-robed middle-aged man wickedly chuckled. This was the God Lord who had pretended to help Zhao Feng. His true goal was to have Zhao Feng join Swift Wind Gate. But later on, in the face of Vermilion Bird Pavilion's God Lord Vast Soul and the Crimson Elder, the azure-robed man immediately abandoned Zhao Feng and fled. Chapter 1472. Tang Bai hadn't expected that Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion, who were like water and fire, would work together to deal with his team. Damn, to think that it would be like this. God Lord Crazy Sword angrily gnashed his teeth. Only now did he remember that the people from Vermilion Bird Pavilion had not tried to kill him. As it turned out, they wanted to draw over all the members of Tang Bai's team and capture them all in one fell swoop. The situation isn't good. Zhao Feng slightly shook his head. The current situation was extremely disadvantageous to them. You brought this upon yourselves. The fierce-looking elder of Vermilion Bird Pavilion coldly said. If not for the appearance of Tang Bai's team, Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion might have already begun fighting over the ancestral artifact fragment. But the 2 factions were roughly equal in strength. If they fought too fiercely, Tang Bai's team would be the fishermen reaping the benefits. The news of the blazing hell fragment's appearance was about to spread. Before that happened, the 2 factions decided to temporarily work together to defeat Tang Bai's team and then quickly attack for the ancestral artifact fragment. Attack! Kill everyone except Tang Bai. The Swift Wind Gate Master called out. The 4 God Lords who had followed him here immediately charged out. The rest of you go as well. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master ordered. God Lord Vast Soul led 2 God Lords in attacking. These 2 Second Heaven God Lords don't plan to personally attack? Zhao Feng glanced at the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master and Swift Wind Gate Master. After some thought, he understood. Although these 2 factions had temporarily allied, they had a very deep grudge and did not completely trust each other. And a God Lord battle was too chaotic. If one side launched a sneak attack, the other side would be in danger. In addition, not even a second heaven godlord would dare to be careless against a dying godlord. They still had to fight for the ancestral artifact fragment, so the leaders of the two factions did not recklessly attack. Moreover, even if they didn't attack, they still appeared to be able to crush Tang Bai's team. Swift Wind Gate had 4 godlords, 2 at First Heaven and 2 at Peak First Heaven. And Vermilion Bird Pavilion had 3 godlords. Godlord Vast Soul was a second heaven while the other was a Peak First Heaven red-robed woman. Tang Bai, let this old man play with you a little longer. Godlord Vast Soul heartily laughed as he rumbled toward Tang Bai, brimming with heavenly pressure. His mission was to restrain Tang Bai and let the others kill Tang Bai's team members. At that time, Tang Bai would be helpless and would no longer be a threat to the two major forces. Tang Bai's face was sullen, and a powerful bloodline aura surged out of his body. Buzz! His body gradually turned white and flickered with faint light, releasing a strange power that could seal all things. Boom! With a wave of the folding fan in his hand, countless crystalline white light waves shot out and hit various places in front of him. Instantly, the power of the place Tang Bai had struck weakened. Retreat! Tang Bai secretly transmitted a message to his team members. The other side still had 2 second heaven godlords who had yet to take action, so they still had a chance to survive. The other side. The 6 godlords charged at Godlord Crazy Sword, Zhao Feng and the others, their attacks filling the sky. Kill! Godlord Crazy Sword was enraged, and the golden sword in his hand exuded a tyrannical sword intent that could pierce through the heavens. Xiu xiu xiu. Countless golden blades of light howled through the air, cutting countless holes in the sea of flames. The other members of Tang Bai's team also began to attack. The black-armored man was a body-refining expert with astonishing strength, while the violet-robed old woman's techniques were more focused on the soul. Zhao Feng swung the Chaos Origin Divine Sword, easily shattering the incoming attacks. Although they were all furious, this was not the time to fight to the death. The other side had the advantage in numbers, and the 2 second heaven godlords had yet to take action. Everyone fought and retreated, and in the process, more and more people were injured. Useless effort. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion master disdainfully snorted. The 2 factions working together only needed to use a portion of their strength to crush Tang Bai's team. He only needed to keep an eye on the Swift Wind Gate Master. He had an extremely deep understanding of the Swift Wind Gate Master. This person was full of schemes and had to be guarded against. The chaotic godlord battlefield gradually moved away from the 2 second heaven godlords. The enemy has 7 people, and the strongest is Godlord Vast Soul. The rest are nothing to worry about, but the 2 second heaven godlords are still watching the battlefield. Zhao Feng's eyes dimmed as he analyzed the current situation. If he revealed his strength, he could reverse the situation. But once the situation changed, the 2 godlords might also take action. Forget it. Even a second heaven godlord can't do anything to me. Killing intent surged in Zhao Feng's eyes. If he didn't reveal his strength, Tang Bai's team would have no chance of victory. And there were far too many people participating in the struggle for the ancestral artifact fragment. There were even people from other factions and even sacred lands hurrying over. Zhao Feng had very little hope of obtaining the blazing hell fragment. It was better to kill a few more godlords. The spoils of war from godlords were also an enormous fortune. Moreover, once he drew away the leaders of the 2 5-star factions, Tang Bai's team would be able to escape, and Zhao Feng wouldn't owe them anything. Kill! The Chaos Origin Divine Sword in Zhao Feng's hand suddenly grew in size, surging with tribulation lightning energy. He shot forward at the azure-robed man from Swift Wind Gate. Zhao Feng only recognized 2 of the enemy godlords, the azure-robed man from Swift Wind Gate and Godlord Vast Soul of Vermilion Bird Pavilion. Zhao Wang, don't! The black-armored man immediately called out. Other than Godlord Vast Soul, the enemy side had 6 godlords. For Zhao Feng to charge forward was simply seeking death. You want to kill me that much? The azure-robed man wickedly smiled, his saber of azure light unleashing countless azure saber images. Seeking death. The red-robed woman and the other members immediately focused their firepower on Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng activated his time law and space intent, and then his body flickered away. At the same time, the chaos heaven void ring around him darkened, forming a pitch-black hole that began to distort and devour energy. Boom! Bang! Crash! Zhao Feng moved with incredible speed, dodging the majority of the attacks while blocking the rest of the attacks by the chaos heaven black hole. So powerful! The black-armored man's eyes widened in shock. At this moment, Zhao Feng displayed speed that not even God Lord Crazy Sword could compare to. Moreover, Zhao Feng's defensive secret art was extremely powerful. Go! God Lord Crazy Sword's eyes flashed with sharpness as he swung his sword, unleashing a rain of golden swords. The others saw that Zhao Feng had drawn away some of the firepower and immediately charged forward. Damn! It's that brat again! God Lord Vast Soul looked at Zhao Feng and cursed. After fighting with Zhao Feng, he knew that Zhao Feng possessed extraordinary strength. But in normal circumstances, his side would not lose. Although he was no match for Tang Bai, his mission was to hold down Tang Bai. Die! Zhao Feng gripped his sword with both hands and slashed. The azure-robed man grimaced as he saw this enormous sword about to descend. He prepared to dodge, but he realized that his thoughts and movements had become extremely slow. The azure-robed man could not dodge this attack. Brat, you're too arrogant. But the azure-robed man's side had many god lords, and they immediately took action to block this attack for him. At the same time, God Lord Crazy Sword's group arrived. The red-robed woman and the other god lords immediately began to deal with the others. Die! Zhao Feng's left eye focused on the azure-robed man. With a ripple of eye intent, a miniature Chaos Origin Divine Sword exploded forward. The azure-robed man, who believed that he had escaped danger, suddenly sensed death. Oh no! The azure-robed man hurriedly used a defensive soul art. A dark azure bell suddenly appeared around him. Boom! Bang! The Chaos Divine Sword pierced through the dark green bell. No, impossible! The azure-robed man's eyes bulged as his entire body trembled. The Chaos Origin Divine Sword pierced through the bell and stabbed into his soul, unleashing a powerful surge of Chaos Origin energy. In the next moment, his soul collapsed and dissipated in the world. Dead. The red-robed woman was flabbergasted. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Feng had killed a first heaven god lord. How had he done this? Good. The black-armored man was elated. With Zhao Feng killing one person, the pressure on them had been greatly reduced. Kill! After killing one person, Zhao Feng did not stop to rest and attacked another god lord. He was most skilled in eye bloodline techniques. He had never displayed this skill before, so he was caught off guard. With Zhao Feng's peak first heaven soul intent, the defensive secret art of the azure-robed man was useless. He could only be insta-killed. BZZ. The energy of a time law engulfed a first heaven god lord of Vermilion Bird Pavilion. Oh no! This god lord sensed that something was wrong and called for help. But at this time, only one god lord could come to his aid. Zhao Feng moved with incredible speed. He went around this god lord and unleashed several Chaos Origin sword bolts, throwing his opponent into confusion. No! The Vermilion Bird Pavilion god lord sensed an intense danger and began to burn his divine power. At the same time, the image of an enormous divine kingdom appeared around him. But no matter what he did, Zhao Feng continued to charge forward, madly swinging his Chaos Origin Tribulation lightning sword. Boom! Bang! The divine kingdom image shattered, and several pitch-black wounds were left on the Vermilion Bird Pavilion god lord's body. But Zhao Feng's attacks did not stop. Chaos Origin sword bolts flooded the world, mixed in with a Tribulation lightning eye flame. Boom! Bang! This Vermilion Bird Pavilion god lord was instantly killed by Zhao Feng's torrent of attacks. He had killed another god lord. On the other side, God Lord Vast Soul was stunned, and then he called out in alarm, "How could this be? This kid is much stronger than before. He has a time law. Ordinary First Heaven God Lords are powerless against him." The red-robed woman felt powerless. "Good. Brother Zhao, I truly didn't misjudge you." Tang Bai was overjoyed. God Lord Crazy Sword, the violet-robed old woman, and the others in Tang Bai's team were also overjoyed. They had previously taken Zhao Feng to be an ordinary god lord, but in this battle, Zhao Feng's performance had left their eyes wide open. Even the second-ranked expert of their team, God Lord Crazy Sword, was far inferior to Zhao Feng. In the distance, the leaders of Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swift Wind Gate grimaced. Zhao Feng had already killed one god lord each from Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion. This person is actually this strong? The Swift Wind Gate master's eyes were extremely gloomy as he mentally cursed, "That useless scoundrel. He actually made me miss out on such a powerful ally." The person the Swift Wind Gate master was cursing was naturally the dead azure-robed middle-aged man. "This kid has extraordinary strength. Our side is on the back foot." The Vermilion Bird Pavilion master clenched his fists, his fiery robe seething with flames as he prepared to attack. But at this moment, the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master received a message. He grimaced in rage, and all the flames in the world began to tremble. "Damn, you dared to trick me?" The Vermilion Bird Pavilion master stared at the Swift Wind Gate master, his mind seething with rage. He had just received news that the people of Swift Wind Gate had already drawn out the ancestral artifact fragment in the center of the burning heaven sea. The temporary alliance had been proposed by Swift Wind Gate, and he immediately felt that something was wrong. However, Tang Bai's group had killed the Crimson Elder of Vermilion Bird Pavilion, so he had agreed. He had been on guard against the Swift Wind Gate master the entire time, but he had never expected for Swift Wind Gate to have another plan. Chapter 1473. Along the way, the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master had been on guard against the Swift Wind Gate master. He had not expected that the Swift Wind Gate master would have another scheme, and he still fell for it. The plan is not going well. Swift Wind Gate master glared at Zhao Feng with resentment. If it weren't for Zhao Feng being too strong and reversing the situation of Tang Bai's team would have been finished off by them long ago. At that time, as long as the Swift Wind Gate master could block the Vermilion Bird Pavilion's group, he would be able to obtain the ancestral artifact fragment. Such a perfect plan was ruined by Zhao Feng alone. Now, not a single one of Tang Bai's team had died, and it was impossible for Swift Wind Gate to stop these two forces. This old man will definitely settle this score with you." The Vermilion Bird Pavilion master snorted angrily and immediately rushed towards the center of the burning heaven sea. Although he was extremely furious at this moment and wished to immediately attack Swift Wind Gate, he did not dare to do so. But the ancestral artifact fragment was even more important. Once he obtained Blazing Hell's fragment, his strength would explode to a whole new level. At that time, even the Swift Wind Gate master would be no match for him. Shio. The Swift Wind Gate master circulated the law of wind, transforming into a gust of white light that instantly surpassed the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master. At the same time, he had the time to interfere with the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master. Shio. The Swift Wind Gate master waved his hand, and countless white wind blades blew out, slicing the entire sea of flames into countless pieces. In the distance, what happened? Tang Bai was taken aback. He had thought that the two leaders who were watching the battle would attack them. In the end, for some unknown reason, the two people in power started fighting one another. "Looks like we've escaped death." God Lord Crazy Sword smiled. The conflict between the two five-star forces suddenly erupted, and it was impossible for them to continue working together to deal with Tang Bai's team. "Damn it, scum of Swift Wind Gate." God Lord Vast Soul angrily cursed. Just now, the members of the Vermilion Bird Pavilion received a voice transmission from the Vermilion Bird Pavilion master and understood Swift Wind Gate's scheme. "Retreat!" The red-clothed woman immediately shouted. Immediately, the members of the Vermilion Bird Pavilion all retreated. "Let's go too." The remaining 3 God Lords of Swift Wind Pavilion immediately left. In the blink of an eye, all of the enemies had retreated. "Let's go and take a look," Tang Bai said in a low voice. What was the reason for the conflict between the two five-star forces to suddenly erupt? The answer was obvious: an ancestral artifact fragment. Yes, we can't let these guys have it easy. A cold light flashed through God Lord Crazy Sword's eyes. Even if he could not obtain the ancestral artifact fragment, he would still do his utmost to disturb these two five-star factions. If he could kill a god lord, he would have already profited. In the center of the burning heaven sea. Boom. Bang. Explosions rang out around the ancestral artifact fragment. The two five-star forces had joined forces to deal with Tang Bai's team. However, they also left some people to guard the center of the burning heaven sea. However, the difference in strength of the people left behind was huge. Boom. Two god lords of Vermilion Bird Pavilion were sent flying, vomiting blood as they flew. The moment the blood spurted out, it was burned and evaporated by the burning sky sea. Damn. It's actually God Lord Blood Rain. A god lord of Vermilion Bird Pavilion had a look of resentment on his face. God Lord Blood Rain was a famous god lord of the Tianhe zone, but it was rumored that he was in seclusion and had not appeared for 10,000 years. Ha, this old man will send you on your way. An elder covered in blood-colored light smiled wickedly. He had only come to help Swift Wind Gate a few days ago. Of course, only the Swift Wind Gate master knew of God Lord Bloodrain's arrival. No one else knew. This was precisely why Vermilion Bird Pavilion had underestimated Swift Wind Gate's strength. That God Lord Bloodrain thrust out a palm, sending a fierce streak of bloody light flying into the distance. Boom. Bang. The two god lords of Vermilion Bird Pavilion working together found it difficult to stop God Lord Bloodrain's attack, and their injuries worsened. On the other side, the image of a blazing golden-red firebird flew through the air. Within the body of the firebird was a dazzling red-gold feather. This feather was a small part of the blazing hell ancestral artifact. Ancestral artifact fragment. Submit to Swift Wind Gate. A first heaven god lord of Swift Wind Gate pursued. At this moment, he was suppressing the ancestral artifact fragment and attempting to take it for his own. However, the ancestral artifact fragment was much stronger in an environment like the burning heaven sea, and the power it occasionally unleashed made him not dare to be careless. What a joke! A few lowly god lords want me to submit? The roar of an old man came from within the feather. There's no time. The first heaven god lord was rather anxious. However, he alone could not subdue the ancestral artifact fragment. At this moment, a deep and resounding voice resounded, "Let me." A gale of white light rapidly approached the ancestral artifact fragment, exuding a gale energy that could engulf all things. This person was none other than the Swift Wind Gate Master. But before he could even attack, a dreadful ripple of divine power appeared behind him. The ancestral artifact fragment is mine. The flame wings on the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's back rapidly flapped, unleashing a wave of fire at the Swift Wind Gate Master. Behind him, the other members of the two factions began to arrive. What's going on? God Lord Bloodrain looked at the Swift Wind Gate Master in surprise and anger. Their plan was foolproof. As long as the Swift Wind Gate Master could hold down Vermilion Bird Pavilion for a few more moments, victory was assured. Nearby, Tang Bai's team slowly approached. The ancestral artifact fragment has appeared. The black-armored man's face trembled in excitement. That's right, but we just went through a major battle, and all of us have significant injuries. Let's wait and see. Tang Bai called out. Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion each had two powerful god lords. Moreover, Vermilion Bird Pavilion had already been schemed against by Swift Wind Gate, and the two factions already had a deep grudge against each other. The chances of them working together were extremely low. Thus, they only needed to wait until the two factions were about done fighting. That way, their chances of success would be the highest. In the distance, Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swift Wind Gate were engaged in a fierce battle. This was the final juncture in the struggle for the ancestral artifact fragment, and both sides were holding nothing back, even using some of their trump cards. The wings on the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's back blotted out the sky as he unleashed powerful fire energy. Kaboom! A tornado of fire swept through the world, covering an enormous area. If an ordinary First Heaven God Lord was injured by it, they would lose a layer of skin. Don't get excited. Let's stop for now and deal with Tang Bai's team first before fighting over the ancestral artifact fragment. Otherwise, if we fight to the death, they'll just sit back and reap the benefits. The Swift Wind Gate Master calmly said. Vermilion Bird Pavilion won't trust you a second time. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master seethed with rage. The Swift Wind Gate Master had an extremely nasty grimace, occasionally glancing at Tang Bai's team. Continuing to fight is very disadvantageous to us. The Swift Wind Gate Master's eyes were extremely gloomy. At this moment, his expression flickered as he turned to God Lord Blood Rain. Boom! God Lord Blood Rain suddenly exploded with supreme power, a bloody light illuminating the entire sea of fire. Boom! Bang! His opponent, God Lord Vast Soul, had his defenses shattered, and his body flew backward, vomiting blood. As it turned out, God Lord Vast Soul's strength had been sealed in his battle with Tang Bai, and even now he had not completely undone it. Moreover, God Lord Blood Rain was already extremely strong, so God Lord Vast Soul was on the back foot. After pushing back God Lord Vast Soul, God Lord Blood Rain transformed into a dark red streak of light and arrived near the ancestral artifact fragment. Boom! A massive ball of bloody divine power surrounded the ancestral artifact fragment. The ancestral artifact fragment struggled with all its might, but it was still slowly wrapped up in that bloody light. The ancestral artifact fragment was temporarily under God Lord Bloodrain's control. Let's go! God Lord Bloodrain called out. Okay. The Swift Wind Gate Master was elated. It seemed like Swift Wind Gate would have to thank the God-sealing race's Tang Bai for obtaining the ancestral artifact fragment. Swish swish swish. All the members of Swift Wind Gate retreated, activating their secret speed arts in preparation to flee. Now that they had obtained the ancestral artifact fragment, there was no need to continue fighting. The members of Swift Wind Gate specialized in speed, so if they sincerely wanted to flee, the members of Vermilion Bird Pavilion would never be able to catch up. As long as they could throw off Vermilion Bird Pavilion, the ancestral artifact fragment would be Swift Wind Gate's. Not good. We can't let them escape. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master flapped his wings of flame as he pursued. The other members of Vermilion Bird Pavilion also madly pursued, unleashing attacks that blotted out the heavens. In the rear, Tang Bai and the others were taken aback. Not good. I didn't think that Swift Wind Gate would obtain the ancestral artifact fragment so quickly. Tang Bai's gaze darkened. He had imagined that the two factions would fight until they were about to reach a stalemate, and then Swift Wind Gate would suddenly strike and seize the ancestral artifact fragment. Things did not turn out as they had hoped, and the fishermen reaping the benefits did not occur. Moreover, Swift Wind Gate specialized in speed. If Vermilion Bird Pavilion could not catch up, it would also find it very difficult to do so. At this moment, with a ripple of space-time energy, Zhao Feng shot forward. I can catch up. As long as I can delay Swift Wind Gate for a few moments and wait for Vermilion Bird Pavilion to catch up. Zhao Feng inwardly chuckled. As long as Swift Wind Gate was disturbed and Vermilion Bird Pavilion caught up, the two factions would once more engage in a battle to the death. At this moment, Zhao Feng was not only using space-time energy, he was also using the metal lightning radiance wings to push his speed to the limit. A ripple of energy swept past the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master. It's that brat. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master was alarmed. Up ahead, the Swift Wind Gate Master sensed something. Oh no! His face was both shocked and enraged. Is this brat the main culprit behind our plan's failure? God Lord Blood Rain stared at Zhao Feng, his eyes brimming with killing intent. For a first Heaven God Lord to be able to explode with speed far exceeding that of a second Heaven God Lord was truly astonishing. Chaos Origin Tribulation Lightning Slash. Zhao Feng condensed a Chaos Origin Divine Sword and swung it. Boom! A massive bolt of Chaos Origin Tribulation lightning energy howled forward. Not even the Swift Wind Gate Master dared to be careless against it. The other members hurriedly moved to dodge. The scene of Zhao Feng killing two First Heaven God Lords was still fresh in their minds. Boom! As the Chaos Origin Tribulation lightning slash descended, it did not affect many people, but it exuded a strange white light that caused the world to twist and slow down. Not good. It's a time law. The Swift Wind Gate master grimaced, wanting nothing more than to tear Zhao Feng to pieces. At this moment, the members of Swift Wind Gate were affected by the time law and restrained for a few moments. In the rear, the members of Vermilion Bird Pavilion quickly caught up. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion master knew that Zhao Feng was intentionally obstructing Swift Wind Gate so that the two sides would fight to the death again. But knowing that this was Zhao Feng's scheme, Vermilion Bird Pavilion could not possibly let Swift Wind Gate go. Chapter 1474. Zhao Feng suddenly attacked, delaying Swift Wind Gate for a few moments so that Vermilion Bird Pavilion could catch up. Although Vermilion Bird Pavilion knew that this was Zhao Feng's plan, they could not let Swift Wind Gate go. In the distance, the other members of Tang Bai's team were stunned by Zhao Feng's astonishing actions. Wonderful! This way, the two factions will have no choice but to continue fighting to the death. Tang Bai clapped his hands and smiled. Boom! Bang! Crash! The two factions once more began to battle. Several god lords clashed, various laws and powerful divine power weaving through the world, causing the entire burning heaven sea to seethe. At this moment, a red-robed woman charged out from Vermilion Bird Pavilion's side at Zhao Feng. Don't even think about leaving. The red-robed woman's alluring voice rang out. On the other side, a peak First Heaven God Lord of Swift Wind Gate also charged out. Zhao Feng's actions just now had both disturbed Swift Wind Gate and schemed against Vermilion Bird Pavilion. These two factions naturally would not allow Zhao Feng to leave like this. Moreover, killing Zhao Feng would deal a heavy blow to Tang Bai's team. The red-robed woman wielded a fire snake whip, and as she swung it, the sky was filled with fire snakes that shot toward Zhao Feng. The white-bearded elder of Swift Wind Gate roamed the area to prevent Zhao Feng from escaping. Heh, then I'll play with you. Zhao Feng was in no rush to retreat, but he could deal with two peak First Heaven God Lords without using his God Eye power. Not good. Brother Zhao has been entangled by them. The black-armored man grimaced. Don't panic. Zhao Wang seems to be intentionally staying there. Tang Bai immediately said. If they recklessly charged out, he could not predict what would happen. Chaos Heaven Black Hole. Zhao Feng unleashed a vast amount of Chaos Origin divine power to form a ring of light. This ring of light grew darker and darker until it was black. It was like a black hole that could distort and devour all things. Boom! Bang! Crash! The countless fire snake whips struck the Chaos Heaven Black Hole, only stirring up waves of fire. I'll kill you first. After condensing the Chaos Origin Lightning Tribulation Sword, Zhao Feng rushed toward the red-robed woman. What a powerful defense. Daoi attacks have no effect on it. The woman in red lashed out with the long whip in her hand. Countless fire serpents appeared on the whip and coiled around it. Fire snake bind. That long whip was extremely nimble. It swam between heaven and earth, circling around Zhao Feng's surroundings before instantly contracting. The woman's whip was a supreme-grade divine artifact. Even Zhao Feng's Chaos Origin Tribulation Lightning Sword couldn't break it. At the same time, a sharp wave of divine power came from behind Zhao Feng. Aurora Wind Cut. The white-bearded old man shouted and threw the spiral light beheader in his hand. It turned out that the two god lords had reached a consensus just now. The red-clothed woman was responsible for restraining Zhao Feng, while the white-bearded old man condensed a powerful single-target trump card to deal a fatal blow to Zhao Feng. They had been enemies for many years, so they understood each other quite well. Swish, swish, swish. The illusory white blade of light stirred up gales of wind as it slashed at Zhao Feng. At this moment, the sea of fire was stirred up into a tornado that gathered around the spiral light beheader. Boom! Bang! Crash! The attack descended upon the Chaos Heaven Black Hole, causing an explosion of energy to sweep through the world. Your defensive secret skill can't stop my Aurora Wind Cut. The white-bearded old man was extremely confident and couldn't help but sneer. Possessing the law of wind, his divine power attacks were incomparably sharp. His cutting ability was extremely strong, and his ability to break through defenses was top-notch. Moreover, he was extremely confident in his trump card. Back then, his Aurora Wind Cut had been able to break through the defenses of a Second Heaven Godlord. Second Heaven? Zhao Feng couldn't help but sneer. Even the ordinary attacks of a Second Heaven Godlord would find it difficult to break through his defenses. But this time, the red-clothed woman's fire snake bind was keeping the Chaos Heaven Black Hole's defenses at bay. Kaboom! The power of the Aurora Wind Cut gradually weakened. A crack appeared on the Chaos Heaven Black Hole, but it quickly healed. This? The white-bearded elder was at a loss for words, his face slightly red. He had been boasting just now, but in the end, all he managed to do was open a small crack. Just a turtle hiding in its shell. Just keep hiding in there. The red-clothed woman's eyes dimmed, and then she gave a sweet smile and jeered. Any man would be infuriated to be called a turtle by such a seductive woman. Is that so? I'll let you experience the upgraded Chaos Heaven Black Hole. Zhao Feng took in a deep breath, and boundless tribulation lightning energy surged out of his lightning soul body. Swish! The Chaos Heaven Black Hole suddenly began to crackle with lightning. A few moments later, countless arcs of lightning covered the Chaos Heaven Black Hole. At this moment, the Chaos Heaven Black Hole seemed to have become a black vortex of lightning. Long ago, Zhao Feng had fused tribulation lightning energy into his Chaos Origin Divine Sword. In theory, fusing the Chaos Heaven Black Hole was also possible. However, the Chaos Heaven Black Hole was of a higher level, making it more difficult to fuse. But not long ago, Zhao Feng completed the fusion. After fusing with the tribulation lightning energy, the Chaos Heaven Black Hole's defense didn't improve, but its destructive power had greatly increased. Swish! 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 The spiral light slash instantly arrived around the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex. At this moment, the twisting power spread out from the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex along with the tribulation lightning energy. Swish! The power of the spiral light slash was greatly weakened, and its light dimmed a little. Bang! In the end, the spiral light slash landed on the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex, but it didn't leave a single mark. At the same time, the fire snake whip around Zhao Feng was also affected by the twisting power and the power of the lightning, and its power gradually weakened. The red-clothed woman even felt that her supreme-grade divine artifact couldn't withstand the power and might be damaged. Seeing this, the red-clothed woman hurriedly put away her whip. Kill! Inside the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex, Zhao Feng wielded the Chaos Origin Lightning Tribulation Sword and approached the red-clothed woman at lightning speed. Fire Snake Chaotic Sea. The red-clothed woman brandished her whip, striking out countless fire snake phantoms that charged at Zhao Feng. As for herself, she hastily pulled away from Zhao Feng. You can't escape. Zhao Feng wasn't afraid in the slightest as he charged forward with the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex. The pitch-black lightning vortex crashed into the fire snakes, destroying all the fire snakes that approached. The portion of their energy was absorbed by the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex. However, Zhao Feng's speed wasn't affected at all as he gradually approached the red-clothed woman. How is this possible? The red-clothed woman's beautiful face paled as she cried for help. She had never seen a defensive secret technique with such great destructive power. Seeing Zhao Feng approaching, the red-clothed woman's heart thumped rapidly. Cold sweat broke out on her back, drenching her red clothes. Just who is this person? He's actually so difficult to deal with. The white-bearded old man followed closely behind Zhao Feng, continuously slashing out wind blades. However, these attacks couldn't affect Zhao Feng's Chaos Heaven lightning vortex. Rumble! As Zhao Feng approached the red-clothed woman, he slashed out with the Chaos Origin lightning sword. A bloody wound appeared on the red-clothed woman's left shoulder from Zhao Feng's attack. The wound was charred black and crackled with lightning. At the same time, Zhao Feng fiercely crashed into the red-clothed woman within the Chaos Heaven lightning vortex. At this moment, the Chaos Heaven black hole's distortion, devouring, and lightning energy all acted on the red-clothed woman. Boom! The red-clothed woman screamed miserably, her body charred black as she flew back. As for Zhao Feng, he stuck close to the red-clothed woman. The Chaos Heaven lightning vortex around him stuck to the red-clothed woman. The powerful distortion and lightning energy tore the red-clothed woman to pieces. No, this monster. The white-bearded old man, who had been attacking Zhao Feng from behind, suddenly stopped, his legs trembling. He had never seen such a powerful person. Speed, defense, offense, and every other aspect were perfect. Swish. After killing the red-clothed woman and collecting the spoils, Zhao Feng immediately went after the white-bearded elder. In the distance, Tang Bai's team was frozen, their faces slack. When Zhao Feng was in danger just now, they had almost charged out to help Zhao Feng. In the end, Zhao Feng ignored the attacks of 2 peak First Heaven God Lords and even killed one of them. But this was not the end. After killing one, Zhao Feng went to kill another. Monster, monster. Without even thinking, the white-bearded elder used a secret escape art, transforming into a gust of wind that fled through the sea of flames. Behind him, the pitch-black lightning vortex was in hot pursuit, slowly getting closer and closer. In the chaotic battle, Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion were also alarmed by this sight. How could this be? How did this person do it? The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master was flabbergasted. In the face of 2 peak First Heaven God Lords, Zhao Feng was able to swiftly kill one of them and then pursue the other. It seemed like Zhao Feng was about to catch up to the injured white-bearded elder. At this moment, the Swift Wind Gate Master could no longer suppress his rage. Earlier, Zhao Feng had killed a Swift Wind Gate God Lord and then stopped them. Now, he was going to kill more of their people. Don't even think about escaping. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master immediately moved to stop the Swift Wind Gate Master. In the environment of the Burning Heaven Sea, he was slightly stronger than the Swift Wind Gate Master. At this moment, the white-bearded old man screamed miserably. The white-bearded elder was pressed down by the Chaos Heaven Lightning Vortex, and a Chaos Origin Lightning Sword was thrust into his chest. A few moments later, the white-bearded elder's soul was extinguished by the combined attacks of the Chaos Heaven Lightning Vortex and the Soul Sky Lightning Sword. After putting away the spoils of war, Zhao Feng retreated to the side and prepared to continue watching the battle. After killing so many God Lords, he had also gained a bountiful harvest. Even if he did not get the ancestral artifact fragment, his participation in this mission had not been in vain. But at this moment, Zhao Feng sensed several powerful auras descending. Moreover, there were several auras that Zhao Feng was familiar with. It's them. Zhao Feng grimaced. Boom boom boom. 3 silhouettes dashed over in an incomparably domineering manner and landed in front of everyone. They are? The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master stared at the 3, his expression extremely grim. These 3 were all Second Heaven God Lords and gave off an unfathomable aura, but he didn't recognize any of them. The leader of the 3 was covered in pitch-black dragon scales and exuded an extremely dangerous aura. The other was a black-robed elder with pitch-black eyes that resembled dead pools. The last was a cold and aloof woman covered in golden-red feather tattoos. God Lord Tyrant Dragon. God Lord Heavenly Solitude. Zhao Feng was startled. These 2 were powerful God Lords that had been pursuing him. He hadn't expected them to be together and to come here. Could it be that they had found his tracks and chased after him? But they're completely ignoring me as if they don't even see me. Zhao Feng's heart sank. These 2 gave Zhao Feng the feeling that they hadn't noticed him at all. If Zhao Feng were to suddenly run away now, he would only arouse their suspicions. I didn't think that there would be a blazing hell fragment here. We'll take it without politeness. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's eyes gleamed with a savage light as he stared at the blazing hell fragment in God Lord Bloodrain's hand, his eyes brimming with greed. Good sir is a little too confident. The Swift Wind Gate Master was rather displeased. Trash like you are nothing in front of me. God Lord Heavenly Solitude's hoarse voice rang out, and a deathly energy began to spread out, making one shiver in fear. Perhaps I can use Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion to get rid of them. Zhao Feng's mind was rapidly turning. The appearance of the ancestral artifact fragment had attracted many God Lords. If things went smoothly, Zhao Feng could even use others to help him get rid of these foes. Chapter 1475. Perhaps I can use Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion to get rid of them. Zhao Feng's mind was rapidly turning. Both God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude were incredibly powerful. Zhao Feng would find it rather difficult to kill them alone. But now, the appearance of the ancestral artifact fragment had gathered many God Lords. If he could successfully use these people, he could even have them help him get rid of these two enemies. Obediently hand over the blazing hell fragment, or else all of you will be buried here. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's vicious gaze swept over the area, exuding a tyrannical and dreadful energy. Under God Lord Tyrant Dragon's gaze, several First Heaven God Lords began to feel fear. Humph, what bold words! The Swift Wind Gate Master's body trembled in rage. He had been infuriated for so many times during his operation to obtain the ancestral artifact fragment. And now, 3 Second Heaven God Lords had suddenly arrived, arrogant and domineering, demanding that he obediently hand over the ancestral artifact fragment. The God Lords of Vermilion Bird Pavilion also found God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group extremely displeasing to the eye. They had seen arrogant and domineering people before, but they had never seen anyone this arrogant. 3 trifling people dared to declare that they would all be buried here? In the distance, Tang Bai's eyes darkened, his expression shifting. These people aren't simple. Of course, it wasn't just Tang Bai who realized this. The other Second Heaven God Lords also felt the same way. But the words of God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group had left them extremely displeased, so they took an extremely unyielding stance. Suddenly, Zhao Feng spoke. Swift Wind Gate Master, your Swift Wind Gate cannot keep the ancestral artifact fragment. It's best if you hand it over to avoid heavy casualties. Zhao Feng was currently concealing his appearance and aura, so no one else could see his true appearance. What? No. The Swift Wind Gate Master was seething with rage, and he clenched his teeth, wanting nothing more than to tear Zhao Feng to pieces. If not for Zhao Feng, Swift Wind Gate would have already succeeded in obtaining the ancestral artifact fragment. At a time like this, Zhao Feng was still mocking Swift Wind Gate, demanding that they hand over the ancestral artifact fragment. If Swift Wind Gate did as Zhao Feng said, all of them would feel humiliated and no longer have the face to see anyone. Zhao Feng chuckled when he saw the expressions of Swift Wind Gate's God Lord and God Lord Blood Rain. His first words were to provoke Wind Gate so that they would not easily give in. Vermilion Bird Pavilion, you really are useless. I helped you block Swift Wind Gate just now, but you still didn't succeed. You didn't even touch the ancestral artifact fragment. Just hurry up and leave. Don't embarrass yourselves here. After speaking about Swift Wind Gate, Zhao Feng turned his spear to Vermilion Bird Pavilion. Gut. You brat, courting death. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's face went red with anger and flames of anger surged behind him, as if he could attack Zhao Feng at any moment. Spirit Master, Chen Soul Wind Master of the Spirit Pavilion Master, the of the Vermilion the Dragon Lord, the Red Dragon Pavilion Master, you also, Chen Feng of God. Didn't you also not touch the ancestral artifact fragment? God Lord Vast Soul rolled his eyes at Zhao Feng and jeered. But my harvest on this trip is already very plentiful. Zhao Feng carelessly said. In this struggle for the ancestral artifact fragment, Zhao Feng had already killed 4 God Lords, and the spoils he had obtained were truly plentiful. You really do talk a lot of nonsense. If you don't hand over the ancestral artifact fragment, don't blame this god for starting a massacre. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's vicious eyes immediately turned to the Swift Wind Gate group. The ancestral artifact fragment was still in God Lord Bloodrain's hands. Hand it over? Don't even think about it. The Swift Wind Gate Master bellowed, his anger still burning. If he handed over the ancestral artifact fragment, he would have no face left. It's still not certain who will be the final victor. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master sneered. He had to obtain the ancestral artifact fragment no matter what. Seeking death. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's eyes focused as he charged forward, brimming with black and red draconic flames. At this moment, the bloodline energy of the Calamity Taboo swept through the world, battering at the bloodlines of all the God Lords. Destruction Dragon Race. Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion cried out in alarm. Buzz. BZZ. The ancestral artifact fragment under God Lord Bloodrain's control trembled as it battered against the wall of bloody light. Attack together. The Swift Wind Gate Master hurriedly called out. The moment God Lord Tyrant Dragon charged forward, he knew that he was no match for his foe. But Swift Wind Gate had many members. All the God Lords of Swift Wind Gate charged forward. The strongest of them, God Lord Bloodrain, and the Swift Wind Gate Master led the charge. God Lord Bloodrain pushed out a hand, unleashing a wave of bloody energy that surged forward. The Swift Wind Gate Master waved his green jade sword, unleashing a dense rain of green swords. In the rear, the other members of Swift Wind Gate unleashed powerful attacks. Rumble. Torrential divine power surged toward God Lord Tyrant Dragon like a primordial beast. Destruction Dragon Breath. God Lord Tyrant Dragon activated his Destruction Dragon Race bloodline and origin energy as he spat out a forbidden black flame from his mouth. Boom. Bang. The black flame transformed into a black sun that exuded a dreadful energy that could destroy all things. The clash of these two powerful energies stirred up a massive storm that swept through the world. How could this be? On the side, the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master revealed a horrified expression. God Lord Tyrant Dragon had managed to block the attack of all the experts of Swift Wind Gate by himself. This sort of strength was far too terrifying. If this continues, Swift Wind Gate's defeat will be assured. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master grimaced. Swift Wind Gate's defeat naturally had nothing to do with them. But if the ancestral artifact fragment fell into the hands of God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group, Vermilion Bird Pavilion would have no hope at all. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master secretly communicated his thoughts to the other members, and they immediately agreed. Let this old man play with you. God Lord Heavenly Solitude saw through the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's thoughts and shot forward. BZZ. His eyes began to turn, the death law filling the world. The entire sea of fire darkened as black mist seeped into it. Just an eye of death descendant. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's face chilled as he charged forward with the other members. Just being an eye of death descendant was much weaker than the Destruction Dragon Race bloodline. Is that so? God Lord Heavenly Solitude sneered, and with a flip of his palm, a golden red feather appeared. By activating the ancestral artifact fragment, the flames of the burning heaven sea were immediately roused. Death Fire Vortex. God Lord Heavenly Solitude activated the Eye of Death and the power of the ancestral artifact fragment, unleashing a massive black and red vortex. Boom. Bang. Bang. The vortex pulsed with the destructive energy of death and fire, pulverizing all. Blazing Hell Fragment? The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master blurted out in shock. He hadn't expected for this death descendant to also have a blazing hell fragment. Coupled with his quasi-god eye-level Eye of Death, God Lord Heavenly Solitude's strength had reached the third heaven level. In the distance, Tang Bai was startled. As expected, he's not simple. The two people who had already attacked both had third heaven fighting power, and the cold woman who had yet to attack was not weak either. At this moment, a soul message resounded in Tang Bai's mind. Tang Bai, they have an ancestral artifact fragment. Let's work together to deal with them. If we succeed, we'll each get an ancestral artifact fragment. The one who messaged Tang Bai was none other than the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master. God Lord Heavenly Solitude taking out an ancestral artifact fragment had not intimidated him. On the contrary, it had only fueled his greed. Tang Bai said nothing. His intuition told him that these three were not to be trifled with. Brother Tang, if we work together with Swift Wind Gate and Vermilion Bird Pavilion to defeat these three, we should be able to harvest quite a bit. Suddenly, Zhao Feng messaged Tang Bai. When do we attack? God Lord Crazy Sword's soared intense sword into the sky. They had been watching from the sidelines this entire time. If this continued, the struggle for the ancestral artifact fragment might end and they wouldn't even have a chance to attack. Tang Bai clenched his teeth and called out. He wasn't someone who was afraid of trouble. Zhao Feng faintly smiled as he charged towards the cold girl who hadn't attacked yet. Thus, Tang Bai and the others followed. Seeking death. The cold woman's red eyes focused. Bzz. The golden red feather tattoos on her body suddenly began to burn, transforming into flaming feathers that covered her body. Her arms transformed into a pair of heaven-shrouding flame wings that exuded a scorching bloodline pressure. Kaboom! Flames madly seethed within the burning heaven sea. The blazing hell fragment in God Lord Bloodrain's hand began to tremble even more intensely, almost as if it would break free of its bindings. Golden Crow Race. Tang Bai's eyes glimmered. The other members of the group had grim expressions as they prepared for battle. These three have different bloodlines and abilities. Why are they together? Zhao Feng was rather confused. Did these three belong to the same faction? Zhao Feng couldn't help but speculate that these three were members of a sacred land or a faction on the same level as a sacred land. Sealing Gate. Tang Bai formed a seal with his hands, unleashing a strange energy that surged around the cold woman. Bzz. This twisted white light formed a crystalline white gate. Countless God-sealing race characters suddenly appeared on the white gate, ultimately sealing it off. Seal. A special energy seeped into the cold woman's body and sealed all her abilities. Kill. Zhao Feng and the other members used this chance to attack. If Zhao Feng used Chaos Origin Divine Power, God Lord Tyrant Dragon would probably recognize him. After all, the two had fought before. For this reason, Zhao Feng only used ordinary divine power attacks, so his fighting power was equivalent to that of a slightly stronger First Heaven God Lord. Moreover, Tang Bai's techniques were sealing, so his attacks were not very strong. For a moment, they were unable to gain much of an advantage in ganging up on the cold woman. However, they still had the advantage in numbers. If this continued, the Golden Crow Race woman was doomed to lose. Good. Zhao Feng rejoiced as he looked at the other two sides. God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude were powerful, but their opponents were no pushovers. Crucially, they had the advantage in numbers. If this continues, all three of them will be defeated. Zhao Feng began to plan. Once God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude were defeated, he would have no qualms about revealing his identity and using his trump cards to kill them in one fell swoop. The members of Vermilion Bird Pavilion and Swift Wind Gate were also extremely excited. God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude both had ancestral artifact fragments. As long as they were killed, they would have 3 ancestral artifact fragments. Vermilion Bird Pavilion, Swift Wind Gate, and Tang Bai could all get an equal share. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group was slowly being pushed back. Zhao Feng was impatient to reveal his full strength at any moment and kill them. Suddenly, God Lord Tyrant Dragon, God Lord Heavenly Solitude, and the Golden Crow Race woman sneered and looked at Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng, long time no see. Has your strength fallen to this level? God Lord Heavenly Solitude's hoarse voice rang out. Zhao Feng grimaced in shock. Not good. They knew of my identity long ago. The 3 enemies knew of Zhao Feng's identity long ago, but they pretended not to know at the start. There had to be a reason for this. Now that God Lord Heavenly Solitude had pointed it out, Zhao Feng suddenly had an ill foreboding. Chapter 1476. At this moment, God Lord Heavenly Solitude gave a wicked and sinister smile as he called out Zhao Feng's true identity. Zhao Feng. Tang Bai paused. He found this name rather familiar. Zhao Feng. The rumored owner of the 9th God Eye also has this name. God Lord Crazy Sword's eyes flashed as he stared in disbelief at Zhao Feng. Yes. Tang Bai suddenly raised his head and stared in shock at Zhao Feng. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master and Swift Wind Gate Master were both dumbfounded. They had never imagined that the mysterious God Lord who had repeatedly conned them would actually be the rumored owner of the 9th God Eye. If they had known this, they would have never fought over the ancestral artifact fragment. Capturing Zhao Feng would have been their #1 priority. The 9th God Eye could create a God Eye deity. How could a mere ancestral artifact fragment compare? Run! This thought emerged in Zhao Feng's mind. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group of 3 was definitely up to something. Moreover, now that his identity had been exposed, the others would inevitably give up on the ancestral artifact fragment and attack him. It's already too late. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's lips curled into a sinister smile. Suddenly, his 9th god eye sensed a powerful bloodline energy. Not good. There's another expert. Is this their backup plan? Zhao Feng finally understood why God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group had pretended not to notice him. This was because their goal was to delay Zhao Feng until the true experts arrived. At this moment, God Lord Heavenly Solitude, God Lord Tyrant Dragon, and the Golden Crow race woman exploded with their bloodline divine power and broke free of their bindings. Swoosh swoosh. The 3 of them went behind Zhao Feng to prevent Zhao Feng from escaping. What's going on? The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master looked into the distance, his body trembling. As a second heaven god lord, he sensed danger approaching. Oh no! The Swift Wind Gate Master's expression darkened as he retreated. The god-sealing race bloodline in Tangbai's body also trembled, giving him a warning. Nearby, a spatial vortex appeared. A tall and mighty man in white robes descended from the heavens and the earth, shrouded in layers of white divine light. Bzz. At this moment, the heaven and earth trembled violently, and the atmosphere became extremely stifling. The flames of the entire burning heaven sea were suppressed by several thousand feet. Within a radius of several million miles, all living beings felt a powerful pressure. Those with cultivations lower than a god lord prostrated themselves on the ground, their bodies trembling. Third heaven. Zhao Feng was shocked. Although he had never seen a third heaven godlord before, he was sure that this person was at least a third heaven, perhaps even stronger. Zhao Feng mobilized the space-time laws, turned into an aurora, and retreated. At this moment, Zhao Feng's speed was unprecedentedly fast. Dream on! God Lord Tyrant Dragon, the Golden Crow race woman, and God Lord Heavenly Solitude all unleashed their bloodline divine power, forming an enormous barrier in front of them. Although the divine emissary had appeared and Zhao Feng couldn't escape, now was the time for them to perform. Even if they knew it was useless, they still had to do it. Scram! Zhao Feng's Chaos Origin Tribulation Lightning Sword instantly unleashed several hundred bolts of sword energy. Boom! Bang! Crush! The vast majority of the Chaos Origin Tribulation lightning bolts bombarded the Golden Crow race woman's body, leaving behind many wounds. But golden red flames instantly flowed through these wounds, slowly healing them. The 8th-ranked Golden Crow race of the 10,000 ancient races possessed an inextinguishable flame body, allowing them to rapidly recover from even the most severe wounds. It was even rumored that even if their entire body was destroyed, they could still be reborn from the ashes. So what if you have an inextinguishable flame body? Zhao Feng ignored everything else and charged forward with the Chaos Heaven Lightning Vortex. All the Golden Crow flames in his path were twisted and devoured by Zhao Feng's Chaos Heaven Lightning Vortex. At this moment, Zhao Feng exploded with his fastest speed and strongest power. Boom! Bang! Zhao Feng crashed into the Golden Crow race woman, and the powerful energy of the Chaos Heaven Lightning Vortex surged forward. Even the recovery speed of the inextinguishable flame body could not compare to the speed at which Zhao Feng destroyed her. At the same time, Zhao Feng flipped his palm and took out a white mirror. Activating the ancestral artifact fragment, a time law energy immediately engulfed the Golden Crow race woman. This caused the Golden Crow tribe woman's resistance and self-healing ability to drop. Time slash. Zhao Feng activated the ancestral artifact fragment, unleashing one massive white blade after another. The woman from the Golden Crow tribe immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. The flames on her body weakened, revealing her alluring body that was riddled with wounds. The other godlords couldn't help but tremble at this sight. He actually has an ancestral artifact fragment? The Swift Wind Gate Master and the Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master both felt extremely uncomfortable. None of them had an ancestral artifact fragment and were fighting to the death for it, but the first heaven Zhao Feng had a time-type ancestral artifact fragment. But what was the use of all this? Tang Bai couldn't help but sigh. He could naturally tell that this third heaven god lord had suddenly appeared to capture Zhao Feng. The divine emissary frowned and extended a palm. A supreme law energy descended around Zhao Feng. At this moment, Zhao Feng's chaos heaven lightning vortex was under the assault of this immense energy, and even its shape began to change. No, there's still a chance. Zhao Feng focused his eyes and began to circulate his dream god eye's origin energy. Dreamification. Dreamy mist spun out of his left eye and seeped into the surrounding space. As for Zhao Feng's left eye, it was completely reduced to a dreamy color. The world in front of him became dreamy and illusory, and the flames on the golden crow race woman's body began to take on a rainbow of colors. Break! Zhao Feng thrust out a finger and circulated his thought power. What's going on? The golden crow race woman's eyes went wide as she sensed the danger of death. The flames on her body suddenly disappeared into thin air. Following that, her arm disappeared bit by bit. In this life and death crisis, the golden crow race woman used all sorts of energy to resist. In the end, she realized that only a law could stop this inexplicable disappearance. In the distant sky, the divine emissary's eyes flashed with sharp light. Is this the power of the ninth god eye? Not even he could understand why the golden crow race woman's body would vanish for no apparent reason. It said that the god eye bloodline is comparable to the ancestors of the top 10 ancient bloodlines. A hint of yearning appeared on the divine emissary's face, and then he focused his gaze on Zhao Feng. Boom! At this moment, he activated his bloodline energy, exploding with primal and ancient energy. Although the ninth god eye was only a first heaven god lord, he would not be careless and even activated his bloodline. Boom! The bloodline energy soared into the sky and stirred up the entire burning heaven sea. His body gradually dimmed, and the lower half of his body vanished, transforming into a dark and twisted mist. The divine emissary's body instantly grew to 100 feet. Kaboom! A primal and origin energy erupted from the divine emissary's body and swept through the world. At this moment, all the living beings in the world that had inherited their bloodlines screamed in fear. The countless firebirds in the burning heaven sea twisted and even exploded under this bloodline energy. Plush! The god lords closest to the divine emissary all vomited blood and grunted. This bloodline, could it be that it's the sixth-ranked race? Even the blood in Mu Bai's body began to churn. In the distance, Zhao Feng was also somewhat affected. Boom! The divine emissary circulated his powerful divine power and thrust out a palm. A ball of distorted gray energy whizzed out. Kaboom! The world trembled as all the energy in the air was absorbed by this dark and twisted divine power. The devouring attribute of this divine power was somewhat similar to Zhao Feng's chaos origin divine power, but it was even more tyrannical. What powerful divine power! The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's divine power fiercely trembled. The god lords below second heaven felt like their divine power had almost frozen and were incapable of moving it. The dark and twisted energy descended around Zhao Feng. Boom! Bang! The chaos heaven lightning vortex around Zhao Feng began to twist and shatter. Die! Zhao Feng clenched his teeth and madly poured out his dream origin energy. In a flash, the dream god eye's power and thought power rose to another level. The speed at which the golden crow race woman disappeared suddenly increased. The divine emissary's eyes froze. Although he had trapped Zhao Feng's eye bloodline technique and time law energy did not stop. At this moment, the golden crow race woman's soul had mostly dissipated, and she was extremely weak. Die! Zhao Feng activated the time ancestral artifact fragment and unleashed a time attack. Boom! The heavily injured golden crow race woman was struck by a crystalline blade, and her body was instantly obliterated. Moreover, time energy was extremely damaging to the soul, so her soul was destroyed. After killing one person, Zhao Feng circulated his energy and flew away. Dead! God Lord Heavenly Solitude and God Lord Tyrant Dragon trembled in shock. They had originally believed that the divine emissary would be fine, but they had never expected this. What? The divine emissary's eyes widened in rage. Zhao Feng had killed his subordinate right in front of his eyes. Chaos Origin Lock. The divine emissary brought his hands together and took control of the twisted and dark divine power. This dark and twisted divine power exuded an extremely powerful attractive force, causing even space itself to twist and distort. This divine power rapidly flew toward Zhao Feng. The powerful attractive force hindered Zhao Feng's movements. BZZ. In a flash, this dark and chaotic divine power formed a circular dimension that sealed off Zhao Feng. Boom. Bang. Zhao Feng circulated his divine power and struggled for his life. But he realized that his Chaos Origin divine power had no effect on the divine power of a third heaven godlord. In fact, when his Chaos Origin divine power surged out, it was absorbed by his opponent's divine power. What sort of divine power is this? Not even my Chaos Origin divine power can do anything to it? Zhao Feng was rather surprised. Even so, he had a way to deal with it, the Dream God Eye. He was confident that the God Eye illusory oblivion would be effective against it. Fearless struggle. The divine emissary coldly snorted as he extended his other hand and unleashed powerful divine power. This dark and twisted divine power fused into the sphere that sealed off Zhao Feng. In a flash, Zhao Feng felt an immense pressure on his body. This energy not only absorbed Zhao Feng's divine power but also tortured Zhao Feng, making it impossible for him to remain calm. The divine emissary instantly arrived at Zhao Feng's side. The dark sphere that trapped Zhao Feng slowly shrank into a sphere that fell into the divine emissary's hand. The divine emissary then formed a spell, creating several seals that seeped into the gloomy sphere. Lord Divine Emissary, congratulations on smoothly capturing the 9th God Eye. God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude both kneeled, expressions of respect on their faces. Anyone who could become a divine emissary was definitely a top-class existence among third heavens. In terms of bloodline fusion, fighting power, and techniques, they were all extremely powerful. Lord Divine Emissary, what do we do with these people? God Lord Tyrant Dragon scanned the area. At this moment, all the God Lords present were panic-stricken. Several First Heaven God Lords were so shaken that they found it hard to stand. Kill them all. The divine emissary was unperturbed. Chapter 1477. Kill them all. The divine emissary's expression did not change. It was as if the deaths of these divine lords were insignificant to him. The divine emissary's words caused everyone else's hearts to tremble. No, you don't dare to kill us. We are 2 of the 5-star forces in the Milky Way region. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master's face was filled with fear. He had never imagined that this third heaven god lord would say something like this, that he would kill all of them. After all, they were the 2 major 5-star forces in the Tianhe region. If all of them died, it would have a huge impact on the overall strength of the Tianhe domain. The holy lands of the Tianhe region would definitely attack in anger. Could it be that these people were not afraid of the Saint Lands? Yes. Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude were not very surprised. It was as if the divine emissary's answer was within their expectations. The 9th God Eye was extremely important. Compared to enraging a sacred land, temporarily keeping the news that they had captured the 9th God Eye was more important. Therefore, everyone who saw this scene must die. This isn't good. God Lord Crazy Sword felt fear in his heart. At this moment, even the 2 5-star factions of the Tianhe region were somewhat afraid, let alone a divine master who didn't belong to any faction. Not good. The Vermilion Bird Pavilion Master, the Swift Wind Gate Master, and the other God Lords sensed this invisible killing intent. They were sure that this third heaven God Lord really did want to kill them. Run! The Swift Wind Gate Master immediately burned his bloodline and divine power. A layer of swift wind light surrounded his body as he prepared to flee. The other experts also used their life-saving trump cards. The sight of that third heaven god lord attacking just now was still engraved in their minds. Even if all the second heaven god lords worked together, they would still be no match for the divine emissary. Besides that third heaven God Lord, there was also the powerful God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude. It could be said that none of the people present had any chance of winning. Don't even think of leaving. The divine emissary's eyes turned cold. He spread open his arms and released a primordial chaotic divine power, drawing in all the power in the world. Bzz. All the energy in a radius of 1,000,000 li trembled as the divine emissary took control of it. Under such circumstances, the others lost the support of the heaven and earth energy, and their strength was greatly reduced. Of course, this was not the end. The divine emissary controlled all the energy in this area to form a dark barrier 1,000,000 li away. The barrier linked together to form a sealed space. At this moment, everyone was trapped in the center of the burning heaven sea. Break! The swift wind gate master was the first to arrive at the edge of the barrier. He channeled the law of wind and divine power, stabbing out layers of green sword light storms. Boom! Bang! The powerful attack of a second heaven god lord struck the gloomy barrier formed by the divine emissary. However, before the swift wind gate master's attack could approach, some of its power was devoured by the dusky barrier. When that layer of cyan sword light storm bombarded the barrier, it was like a thunderstorm. Swift Wind Gate Master sensed that a small portion of the Azure Sword Light Storm's power had been absorbed by the dark barrier. The remaining power of the attack was not enough to break the barrier. Damn it, this all-encompassing, all-devouring power. Chaotic force. The Swift Wind Gate Master looked anxious. At this moment, he was sure that this third Heaven God Lord was the sixth-ranked race of the 10,000 ancient races, the Heaven-Mending race. In terms of origin energy, the Heaven-Mending race's primal chaos energy was definitely one of the strongest of the 10,000 ancient races. It could even be ranked in the top 3. Worthy of being a divine emissary who has fused with the bloodline of the Heaven-Mending race. This kind of power is truly formidable. God Lord Gloomhaven inwardly sighed. The Heaven-Mending race was an archaic bloodline that was extremely difficult to fuse with. However, this heavenly divine emissary had fused with 50% of the Heaven-Mending race's bloodline, thus becoming a heavenly divine emissary. God Lord Gloomhaven and God Lord Tyrant Dragon swiftly took action. Now that they had all been stopped by the divine emissary, they only needed to deal with them one by one. When they were fleeing just now, many of them scattered in all directions. Now that they were separated, they were powerless against experts like God Lord Heavenly Solitude and Tyrant Dragon. Of course, the divine emissaries could control the energy of this dimension as they pleased, and they could also attack. Explosions rang out incessantly as one divine master after another fell. Someone like you is worthy of an ancestral artifact fragment? God Lord Tyrant Dragon unleashed a dragon of black flames that engulfed God Lord Bloodrain's body. Boom! He immediately charged out and snatched the ancestral artifact fragment from God Lord Bloodrain's hands. No! God Lord Bloodrain's body was scorched black as he screamed in pain. He had managed to obtain the ancestral artifact fragment with great difficulty, but now he had not only lost it, but also his life. He was filled with regret. But everything was already decided. On the other side, God's sealing race, obediently come with me. God Lord Heavenly Solitude's Eye of Death focused on Tang Bai. Tang Bai sighed. He never would have imagined that a struggle for an ancestral artifact fragment would end up with such a twist. The ninth God Eye, the owner of the Golden Crow race and Destruction Dragon race bloodlines, as well as a third heaven expert of the Heaven-Mending race bloodline, had appeared. Even though he had lived his entire life in the sacred land, he still felt that this trip was extremely dangerous. Since you know that you can't resist, just obey. God Lord Heavenly Solitude sneered. In his view, Tang Bai was sighing because he felt a deep sense of helplessness. I'll be leaving first. I won't be playing with you any longer. Tang Bai grimaced as a white gold jade talisman appeared in his hand. He was sighing because he did not want to use this trump card. God Lord Heavenly Solitude had completely misunderstood. Bzz. The white gold jade talisman flashed with dazzling golden white light, and then a massive hand of white light emerged from it. Oh no! God Lord Heavenly Solitude grimaced and immediately retreated. The energy exuded by the jade talisman struck deep fear into his heart. Boom! Whoosh! The giant golden hand rushed out from the jade talisman, bringing with it an incomparably powerful force as it pointed out. Boom! Bang! Crash! A hole was immediately punched through the gloomy barrier. At the same time, the power of the barrier was affected by the sealing power, and its might weakened. Hisses! Tang Bai's body was strengthened by the crystalline divine power, and his strength rose to another level. But he knew that he was not skilled at fighting and was still no match for a divine emissary. He transformed into a streak of light and vanished into the distance. After escaping for some distance, Tang Bai sensed that no one was following him, so he used spatial shift to get away. Why would the heaven-mending race be interested in the ninth god eye? Tang Bai was extremely confused. Based on what he knew, the heaven-mending race of the wild ancient era was a pacifist. This race rarely participated in the struggles of the world. Instead, they roamed the fan universe, repairing the holes in space and maintaining the normal operation of the fan universe. He hadn't expected for this race to appear and even act against the ninth god eye. However, Tang Bai also felt that the owner of the heaven-mending race bloodline gave him a very strange feeling. Perhaps there was more to it than met the eye. In the center of the burning heaven sea, at the gap in the gloomy barrier, Your Excellency, your subordinate was incompetent and allowed him to escape. God Lord Heavenly Solitude nervously said. It's fine. The divine emissary calmly turned and left. Tang Bai had suddenly used his trump card, breaking the spatial seal and even affecting the power of the barrier. The divine emissary could have given chase just now, but that would have allowed the other people in this dimension to escape. It was clearly not worth letting more people escape just to capture one person. The divine emissary hurried off to other places to kill the survivors. Let's go! After doing all this, the three used spatial shift to leave. From this point onwards, the struggle for the ancestral artifact fragment in the burning heaven sea became a mystery. It was rumored that all the god lords fighting over the fragment had died, none of them returning. This matter even shook the Tianhe Zone's sacred land, and they even sent out god lords to investigate. On the other side, the divine emissary had captured Zhao Feng, and he was being led by the trio to some unknown place. They actually killed all those people? Zhao Feng mentally sighed. Although the divine emissary had sealed him in a special secret art, he could still sense what was going on outside. God Lord Tyrant Dragon's group had no qualms about killing all the upper echelon members of a 5-star faction. In addition, after being captured by the divine emissary, all the energy in Zhao Feng's body had been absorbed by the gloomy sphere. Perhaps this was precisely why the divine emissary had let down his guard around Zhao Feng. Of course, even though Zhao Feng had been captured and his divine power sucked dry, he was not very flustered. This was because Zhao Feng had a way to escape, thought teleportation. This was a special ability of the Dream God Eye, and it could be used only by consuming dream energy and thought energy. There's no rush. Let's go take a look at their faction and get some information. Zhao Feng was in no rush to leave. The faction behind God Lord Tyrant Dragon was extremely powerful, and it was determined to obtain the 9th God Eye. Being targeted by such a force made Zhao Feng unable to eat or sleep well. Crucially, he knew nothing about this faction. Thus, Zhao Feng planned to enter the tiger's den and see what was going on. If he had a little understanding of this faction, it would be much easier to deal with it. A day later, the trio arrived at an uninhabited area. They're laying down an array. Zhao Feng observed the situation outside from within the gloomy sphere. 3 days later, the array was finished and a mysterious path was opened. Zhao Feng followed them to another place. Where is this? Zhao Feng observed all the unfamiliar objects around him. The world was ethereal and filled with white clouds. In the boundless sky, there were 3 giant floating mountains. Countless buildings of various kinds could be seen on these mountains. At a glance, it seemed like these densely packed buildings had formed one massive mountain. The buildings of the Heaven's Legacy race. Zhao Feng was stunned. Yes, These three massive mountains were covered in Heaven's legacy race buildings. These buildings were even more exquisite and majestic than the Heaven's legacy race cities he had seen before, and they were brimming with various auras. Such massive and complete Heaven's legacy race buildings, could it be? A shocking thought emerged in Zhao Feng's mind. Swoosh swoosh. Several dozen warships patrolled the area around the three buildings. The members of these warships were all puppets, the weakest of which was a rank 7 ancient god. Respectful greetings, divine emissary. All the puppets on the warships got down on one knee and bowed. The divine emissary flew to the massive mountain in the center. This mountain was so massive that even as he approached, Zhao Feng's dream god I couldn't see the end of the mountain. A few moments later, the divine emissary arrived at a black palace at the peak of the mountain. You've returned. The moment he touched the palace, an ethereal voice came from within. Chapter 1478. You've returned. The moment he touched the palace, an ethereal voice came from within. The divine emissary grunted. Bzz. White ripples suddenly appeared in front of him, slowly forming a circular entrance. The divine emissary led Zhao Feng, God Lord Tyrant Dragon, and God Lord Gloomheaven into the palace. The palace was dim, and there was only a black-robed elder inside. He seemed rather ordinary. Lord Divine Emissary. God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Gloomheaven respectfully called out. As it turned out, this black-robed elder was also a divine emissary. But the black-robed elder didn't even glance at them as if he was completely ignoring them. It seems like Brother Baiming has already succeeded in capturing the ninth god eye. The black-robed elder faintly smiled. The person who had captured Zhao Feng was called Baiming Hui. Divine Emissary was just his title. It's just a mere first firmament. If I were to make a move, it would naturally be easy. Baiming Hui's expression was indifferent. In truth, however, he was rather displeased. In capturing Zhao Feng, he had lost a powerful subordinate. Let me experience the ninth god eye. The black-robed elder focused his gaze on the dark sphere next to Baiming Hui. Bzz. With a thought from Baiming Hui, the energy that had imprisoned Zhao Feng slowly dissipated. Zhao Feng appeared in the pitch-black palace. Although Baiming Hui had so easily released him, Zhao Feng had no intention of escaping. He was already deep in the enemy's base, and he had sensed at least 10 God Lord auras along the way. In addition, this black-robed elder was even more unfathomable to Zhao Feng than Baiming Hui. In front of these two divine emissaries, he did not struggle or resist. His eyes narrowed as he memorized every detail. Since he had entered this tiger's den, he naturally had to get to the bottom of this mysterious faction and see the true face of this faction. There's no need to be afraid. You're safe for now. The black-robed elder smiled and amiably said. Zhao Feng was stunned. How was this the attitude of a prisoner? He even felt that the other party seemed to be treating him as an acquaintance that he had met a few times. If he didn't know that his opponent's goal was the ninth god eye, Zhao Feng really wouldn't have felt any sense of danger. After saying this, the black-robed elder stared intently at Zhao Feng's left eye as if he was trying to see through it. At the same time, Zhao Feng was also observing him. Through the see-through ability of the dream god eye, Zhao Feng discovered that the black-robed elder's body hid a terrifying and enormous energy. Moreover, that power was very complicated. Zhao Feng could not see any clues just by using his X-ray vision. However, the black-clothed old man seemed to have sensed that Zhao Feng was spying on him. As expected of the ninth god eye. The black-robed old man smiled meaningfully and turned to leave. Buzz! Baiming Hui immediately took action, unleashing powerful chaotic and gloomy energy that imprisoned Zhao Feng once more. Let's wait for now. The other palace kings, divine emissaries, and Lord Protector will all come. The black-robed elder looked at Baiming Hui and God Lord Tyrant Dragon. The other divine emissaries? Zhao Feng was alarmed. The black-robed elder's words implied that there were other divine emissaries besides him and Baiming Hui. It had to be known that these divine emissaries were the strongest of the third heaven. And there were several more of these people. Less than half a day later, a person shrouded in red light arrived at the palace. In the following days, more and more people arrived at the scene. So many experts. Zhao Feng was stunned. Up until now, there were as many as 15 divine masters who had come to this place. Besides the black-robed elder, there were 4 others on the same level as Bai Minghui. Almost all of these people had mentioned to Bai Minghui that they wanted to meet the 9th God Eye, but they had all been refused. From this, one could see that the black-robed elder had a rather unusual status. In this period of time, Zhao Feng was listening to the conversations of the experts in the palace. He realized that people on the level of God Lord Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude were the palace kings that the black-robed elder had spoken of. Moreover, the factions that these palace kings belonged to were collectively referred to as Defy Palaces. There were 9 of them in total, and God Lord Tyrant Dragon's demon-defying palace was one of them. Further down was the Heaven Hall, 18 in total. The Heavenly Demon Hall that Zhao Feng had visited before was one of them. The more he understood, the more shocked Zhao Feng became. Just how massive is this faction? If his guess was correct, the 18 Heaven Halls were spread across all 18 zones of the ancient desolate realm of gods. He had never imagined that there would be a faction that could cover the entire ancient desolate realm of gods. This was simply too terrifying. The 18 Heaven Halls were equivalent to 18 peak 4-star factions, and the 9 Defy Palaces were equivalent to 9 5-star factions. Suddenly, the expressions of all the members in the palace flickered. They stood up and looked outside. Swish! A tall old man appeared in the palace. His back was hunched, and his skin was as coarse as a 1,000-year-old tree. His skin was covered in countless strange and ancient runes. Although it was impossible to see them clearly, one would find it difficult to look away from them. The elder's eyes were deep and boundless, and his white beard reached the ground. Respectful greetings, Lord Protector. All the God Lord experts in the hall had respectful looks on their faces. Zhao Feng could tell that the vast majority of these people respected this protector from the bottom of their hearts. Protector! Zhao Feng was startled. It seemed like this protector had an even higher status than the divine emissaries. If even the divine emissaries were outstanding third heaven experts, then just how strong was this protector? The protector's gaze first fell on the gloomy sphere in which Zhao Feng resided. When he saw the protector's eyes, Zhao Feng felt a little dazed. At the same time, he felt like many of his secrets had been seen through by this protector. How could this be? Zhao Feng was inwardly alarmed. He rarely had this sort of feeling. One had to realize that not even the Eye of Destiny of the same level could pry into his secrets. The number of people is about right. Some of the 18 palace kings and divine emissaries can't come. The protector's body flashed, and he appeared at the top of the palace. With a point of his finger, a strange ball of Heaven's legacy race characters descended upon the gloomy sphere in which Zhao Feng resided. At this moment, Zhao Feng realized that he could neither see nor hear anything. The 9th God Eye has been captured. Our goal has advanced a step further. The protector appeared rather excited. At this moment, all the members in the palace had looks of yearning on their faces. However, in order to search for information on the 9th God Eye, we've been moving around a lot. Quite a few sacred lands and secret factions have already noticed. The black-robed elder began to report the relevant matters. It was naturally impossible for such a huge force to carry out its activities in a secretive manner. However, Zhao Feng was also extremely shocked. For such a massive faction to be able to conceal itself so well was truly incredible. His Excellency the Heaven Lord will personally come regarding the 9th God Eye. We should first take care of other matters. The protector said with a smile. His Excellency the Heaven Lord? Everyone's eyes widened in shock, and their expressions turned serious. I didn't think that I would be able to see His Excellency the Heaven Lord in my life. God Lord Heavenly Solitude was extremely excited. Ever since he had come to this faction, he had only heard about the Heaven Lord, but he had never met him. But now, because of the 9th God Eye, he would be able to see the Heaven Lord. Very few people probably knew that the 9th God Eye had been captured. Not even Tang Bai, who had managed to escape that day, had revealed this matter. He was confident that the faction behind God Lord Tyrant Dragon was watching him, so he did not recklessly expose his identity. At the very least, he would wait until he returned to the sacred land before speaking of this matter. But in the western region of the ancient desolate realm of gods, in a hidden otherworldly land, quite a few people learned of this matter and were left stunned. This hidden otherworldly land was a place of verdant mountains and clear waters, shrouded in mist. In the depths of a mountain shrouded in hazy mist, there were many hexagonal towers. If Zhao Feng or Zhao Yufei were here, they would definitely feel that this six-sided pagoda was rather similar to the six warlock divine pagoda of the Azure Flower continent. However, this pagoda was 100 times the size of the six warlock divine pagoda. Moreover, the pitch-black hexagonal pagoda was covered in the characters of the Heaven's Legacy race and many mysterious diagrams, brimming with wondrous intent. Amongst these hexagonal pagodas was one abnormally majestic, pitch-black pagoda that seemed to be the center of the world. Many black-robed middle-aged and elders flew out of the nearby hexagonal pagodas. They anxiously charged toward the pitch-black pagoda at the center of the world. What do we do? They've already captured the ninth god Eye. This is bad. Lord Heavenly Shaman, this subordinate has an important report. Several elders with profound and powerful auras stood on the top floor of the pitch-black pagoda. A layer of silver light shone down on the center of the pagoda. A hazy white figure emerged from the light. This woman had an ethereal and tranquil face, and her deep and serene white eyes seemed to be able to see through all things in the world. The woman calmly stood where she was, exuding an unfathomable and ethereal aura. The expressions of many wise men present froze for a moment, and they were in a daze. On the woman's shoulder was a large silver-black lazy cat. Meow. The lazy cat's eyes suddenly opened a slit, and it couldn't help but yawn, stretch, and let out a strange and drawn-out cry. Qinshin, where is Lord Heavenly Shaman? An old man with a wrinkled face walked forward and said slowly, Grandmaster will be here soon. The white-clothed woman indifferently said, and then she went to the side and sat down. Even so, this matter was far too important, and many of the people present were still unable to relax. Eche, we miscalculated this time. They've already captured the ninth god Eye. We have to do something. Quite a few people had worried expressions as they discussed what to do. If Yu Tianshu is allowed to fuse with the ninth god Eye, the consequences will be unimaginable. When the name Tianshu was mentioned, the figures of everyone present stopped, and they revealed various expressions. Some were detest, some were admiration, some were fear. Everything can only be decided after Lord Heavenly Shaman comes out. The wrinkled old man said in a low voice. Chapter 1479. As Lu Qinshin listened to the discussions of the sages, a hint of unease and confusion flashed through her eyes. At this moment, buzz. In the space of the 49th level, a mysterious ripple of star markings suddenly surged out, and the shapeless and immaterial fluctuation flashed through the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, a figure appeared out of thin air at the center of this floor. It was an old man with white hair and a beard that touched the ground. He was tall and stalwart, and behind him was a simple and heavy gray shell. There were strange patterns that were obscure and ancient, as if they contained the mysteries of heaven and earth. As he stood there, he exuded an ancient aura, as if he had lived from the beginning of the world until now. Paying respects to Lord Tianwu. On the 49th floor, a few powerful wise men bowed and saluted. Grandmaster. Lu Qinshin also stood up. Lord Tianwu, the ninth god Eye, the wrinkled elder raised his head and immediately said, I already know. Yu Tianwu flatly said, his ancient voice seeming to come from an extremely distant dimension. The other sages said no more, all of them looking at Yu Tianwu. Since Lord Tianwu already knew everything, what should they do now? Qinshin, what did you see? Yu Tianwu turned his deep and wise gaze to Lu Qinshin and asked. The other sages immediately turned to Lu Qinshin. There was no doubt that Lu Qinshin also knew about the ninth god Eye, but she seemed much calmer. Grandmaster, I saw many fragmented images and clues. Lu Qinxin's eyes suddenly began to spin, and a strange ripple of the void flowed into Yu Tianwu's mind. Lu Qinxin's Grandmaster was the sixth warlock sage of the continent zone. The sixth warlock sage was actually one of Yu Tianwu's clones. The sixth warlock sage was Yu Tianwu's will, so Lu Qinxin still called him Grandmaster. Yu Tianwu's eyes were half closed, and his aura seemed to completely vanish. The entire pitch-black pagoda was silent. All the sages knew that Lord Tianwu had already begun to divine and calculate. After a long while, Yu Tianwu opened his eyes. The ninth god eye possesses an unfathomable fate. Even in a situation of certain death, there is a chance of turning misfortune into fortune. After listening to her grandmaster's words, Lu Qinxin's furrowed brows relaxed. The other wise men naturally understood Lord Heavenly Shaman's words, but this matter was of great importance and they were still worried. But we have to do something. Yu Tianwu gazed into the distance. It was as if he had seen something that ordinary people could not. On the other side, the imprisoned Zhao Feng could suddenly see what was going on in the hall. Looks like they're done with their meeting. Zhao Feng stared at the members in the hall. Although he had never been to the Holy Land, Zhao Feng reckoned that even the middle and upper echelons of the Holy Land were no match for this mysterious force. Take him away, the protector said. Then, Bai Minghui took Zhao Feng and prepared to leave the palace. But at this moment, the protector stood up, his eyes shining brightly. His Excellency the Heavenly Master has arrived. God Lord? When Zhao Feng heard this form of address, his heart was inexplicably shaken. His intuition told him that this so-called Heaven Lord was probably the person in charge of this faction. But at this moment, Bai Minghui had already left with Zhao Feng. After making several turns, Bai Minghui arrived in a massive sealed dimension. Leaving Zhao Feng behind, he swiftly departed. Just what sort of person is the Heaven Lord? Zhao Feng was extremely curious. Earlier, he had been preparing to use thought teleportation to leave. But now, Zhao Feng decided to stay a little longer. Zhao Feng began to carefully examine his surroundings, not letting go of a single detail. In the pitch-black hall, a tall and straight old man in a white robe slowly walked in. In the main hall, everyone's eyes were focused on this person. This white-robed elder had a calm aura, and his dignified face was tinged with a sense of amiability and indescribable temperament. This is His Excellency the Heaven Lord? Although this elder was unremarkable, even ordinary, God Lord Heavenly Solitude's body went stiff, and he didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. His Excellency the Heaven Lord, please. The protector gave up his seat and stood to the side. Only upon hearing the protector's words did the palace kings confirm that this person really was the legendary Heaven Lord. But the eyes of the divine emissaries were still brimming with respect and worship. All of you have contributed greatly to successfully capturing the ninth god eye. The Heaven Lord's amiable and magnetic voice resounded. Bai Minghui slightly raised his head, a hint of pride in his voice. Tyrant Dragon and God Lord Heavenly Solitude were even more elated. The protector reported the important matters that had occurred to the Heaven Lord. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Heaven Lord stood up. The ninth god eye has been captured. Our goal is not far away. The Heaven Lord's eyes looked into the boundless void, seeming to see things that normal people could not. Once all the palace kings were gone, the protector said, based on our analysis, if we immediately seize the ninth god eye, our chances of success are less than 10%. And if we prepare for the seizing ceremony? The Heaven Lord asked, his expression unperturbed. Less than 30%. The protector said after a moment of thought. A 30% chance was still very low. After all, there was only one ninth god eye. If they failed, there would be no next chance. If he cooperates, what are the chances? The Heaven Lord's expression was indifferent, as if everything was within his expectations. If he cooperates, the chances are over 60%. The Heaven Lord's eyes flashed with light. I'll go talk to him. After saying this, the Heaven Lord's figure vanished. In the spacious metal chamber, Zhao Feng was observing the structure of his surroundings. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the passage in front of him. Who is it? Zhao Feng stared in surprise at the white-robed elder. He remembered that this person had not been in the pitch-black hall just now. Moreover, Zhao Feng found it somewhat difficult to see through this person. The other party had no malice, and there was a faint smile on his face. Strangely, this smile made Zhao Feng feel inexplicably amiable. Are you willing to cooperate and hand over the ninth god eye? The white-robed elder went straight to the point. Impossible. Zhao Feng found this rather strange, but his reply was quick and certain. I suggest that you carefully reconsider. Although you have the ninth god eye, you have not fully matured, and your god eye is not complete. With your current cultivation level, you cannot use the true power of the god eye. The white-robed elder slowly approached, his eyes staring at Zhao Feng's left eye as he smiled. And so what? Zhao Feng was rather surprised. Why would such a powerful and mysterious faction send an old man to persuade him? In addition, the ninth god eye had already allowed him to grow at an astonishing rate. If he was given a little more time, Zhao Feng was confident that very few people would have any designs on the ninth god eye. You can also see that the faction I control is comparable to a sacred land. You are now meat on the chopping block. The white-robed elder continued. Zhao Feng was shocked. Was this person the Heaven Lord that the Protector had mentioned? Otherwise, why would he say that this was the faction he controlled? Zhao Feng had never imagined that the ordinary old man who had come to see him was the leader of this enormous faction, and this old man was calmly chatting with him. Since that's the case, why are you wasting words with me? Zhao Feng immediately asked. With his current strength, he truly was incapable of contending against this mysterious faction. On the surface, it seemed like he only had two paths, submit or die. But if that were the case, this person would not have come to negotiate with him. I hope that you will cooperate and hand over the ninth god eye to me, the Heaven Lord said without hesitation. In Zhao Feng's current situation, he had no other choice. But he was afraid that Zhao Feng would try to take him down with him. I will never give the ninth god eye to you. Zhao Feng immediately refused, his stance firm. His eyes seemed to be telling the Heaven Lord that if he tried to steal the god eye, Zhao Feng would rather destroy the ninth god eye. This was also Zhao Feng's bargaining chip. For the time being, he had the ninth god eye in his grasp. Since Zhao Feng had expressed this intention, the Heaven Lord would not lightly touch him. Seizing the ninth god eye will not threaten your life. In addition, I personally have a very favorable opinion of you. Once you hand over the ninth god eye, you can directly become a core member of the Divine Emissary faction. The Heaven Lord was not surprised in the slightest as he continued. Earlier, the Heaven Lord had made clear his intentions and was now beginning to tempt him. Zhao Feng's expression shifted. The status of a divine emissary in this faction was self-evident. And this mysterious faction had the strength of a sacred land. To become a member of the upper echelon of such a powerful faction was a great fortune that could only be discovered by chance. But Zhao Feng's bargaining chip was the ninth god eye. The reward the Heaven Lord was offering was not very large. Of course, I can guarantee that your strength will quickly reach the divine emissary level, even becoming a god king. After all, the ninth god eye is invisibly transforming everything about you. Even if you lose the ninth god eye, you still have the potential to become a god king. The Heavenly Lord casually spoke, as if all of this was extremely simple to him. God king? Zhao Feng was startled. The price the Heaven Lord was offering was truly astonishing. If he cooperated and handed over the ninth god eye, he could even become a member of the upper echelon of this faction, a top-class expert of the ancient desolate realm of gods, a god king. If Zhao Feng was truly in desperate straits, handing over the ninth god eye would truly be a wise choice. As compensation for the ninth god eye bloodline, you can also choose any one of the top 10 ancient bloodlines. Before Zhao Feng could calm down, the Heaven Lord tossed out another heaven-shaking reward. Any one of the top 10 bloodlines. One had to realize that in the eyes of the common people, the top 10 ancient bloodlines were supreme bloodlines of legend and incomparably rare. And now, The Heaven Lord was even promising a bloodline of Zhao Feng's level. If Zhao Feng really had to choose, there was no doubt that he would choose the number 1 ancient race bloodline. However, if one fused with a bloodline, the degree of fusion would be extremely low. Zhao Feng remembered that Yu Heng had only fused with 20 to 30% of the ancient race bloodline. After saying all this, the Heaven Lord calmly looked at Zhao Feng. He was confident that no one would be able to refuse this reward, the status of a divine emissary, a third heaven or even a god-king cultivation, and any one of the top 10 bloodlines. Chapter 1480. At this moment, the Heaven Lord laid out conditions that could move anyone's heart: the position of divine emissary, a third heaven or even a god-king cultivation, and any one of the top 10 bloodlines. Although the price of these conditions was extremely high, it was worth it to use them to obtain the unique 9th God Eye. Zhao Feng took a deep breath and calmed himself down. If he didn't have a trump card for escaping, the Heaven Lord really might have persuaded him to exchange the 9th God Eye for all of this. Of course, he could not refuse immediately, or else the Heaven Master would definitely notice something amiss. If it was anyone who had no way out, they probably wouldn't reject the temptation of such benefits. Give me some time to think. Zhao Feng pretended to be hesitant and struggling. No problem. You can stay here for now. If you need anything, just let the others know. The Heaven Lord was unperturbed by Zhao Feng's answer and calmly replied. After that, the Heaven Lord left. This person is not simple. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. He clearly needed the 9th God Eye, but the Heaven Lord was neither arrogant nor impatient. Impulsiveness was the devil. The Heavenly Lord was able to maintain his calm at any time and analyze everything in his mind. This kind of person made Zhao Feng treat him even more cautiously. After leaving the secret chamber, "How is it, my lord?" the protector asked softly. This kid is in danger, but he's still rather calm. He also understands the importance of the 9th God Eye and is able to endure all the benefits I've offered. The Heaven Lord's expressions suddenly became wise and far-sighted. What should we do next? The protector asked. First arrange the ceremony to seize the God Eye, and then prepare the illusory Heaven Array instrument. If he still doesn't agree in the end, take the 9th God Eye by force. The Heaven Lord immediately replied as if he had already come to a conclusion. The illusory Heaven Array instrument was a special tool created by combining the Heaven's legacy race's array and apparatus. It could cause a God Lord's consciousness to fall into a dream without anyone noticing, rendering them powerless to resist. If Zhao Feng was willing to cooperate, then the illusory sky formation instrument would be useless. If he was unwilling, he could only use this tool to seize the God Eye. Although the success rate was not high, it was the only way. The ceremony to seize the God Eye and the illusory Heaven Array instrument would take 2 years. At the slowest, the 9th God Eye would be in his hands in 2 years. 3 days later, the Heaven Lord once more went to Zhao Feng's secret chamber. At this moment, Zhao Feng was cultivating in the space-time robe, but he had also sensed the Heaven Lord's arrival. Your cultivation method is not bad, but it can only support you to the peak of the first sky. Although you have a lot of power of Upanishads, because of the different levels of your Upanishads, the power of your God power is not at its strongest state. The God Lord suddenly said. Zhao Feng immediately ended his seclusion. Even though the Divine Master was separated by a layer of space, he could still see Zhao Feng's cultivation situation. He could also see through his cultivation technique and point out his current flaws. Zhao Feng was both shocked and impressed. I've cultivated too many power Upanishads. I need some resources. I wonder if the great God could give me some? Zhao Feng asked tentatively. Since the other party took the initiative to guide him, he should agree to this request. That's no problem. Tell me what you need. The Heaven Lord nodded and agreed. Zhao Feng was stunned. He believed that the Heaven Lord would use this chance to bring up the matter of the 9th God Eye, but the Heaven Lord had agreed without a second thought. The next day, 2 elders arrived. One of them was Bai Minghui. Here are the resources you need. Bai Minghui took out an interspatial dimension. Zhao Feng was taken aback. The Heaven Lord had actually sent 2 divine emissaries for such a minor matter. After taking the interspatial dimension, Zhao Feng scanned it with his divine sense. Everything he needed was there. "What are the 2 of you doing?" Zhao Feng looked at the 2 divine emissaries. They had not left after delivering the interspatial dimension. "Your Excellency, the Heaven Lord, has been very busy recently. If you need anything, just tell us." Bai Minghui rolled his eyes at Zhao Feng. If not for the Heaven Lord's orders, he would have never done such a thing. Zhao Feng's mouth dropped open in surprise. This treatment was far too good. Moreover, if not for the fact that the Heaven Lord was busy, he might have come every day to keep him company. "I need some materials to stabilize the core of my divine kingdom." Since that was the case, Zhao Feng bluntly stated his request. The refinement of the ancient dream realm was about to be completed, but the divine kingdom was too large, so the core might not be stable. The 2 divine emissaries were taken aback. They had never imagined that Zhao Feng would be so shameless as to immediately make such a request. The materials needed to stabilize the core of a divine kingdom were extremely precious in the outside world. The core of a divine kingdom also determined its quality. Bai Minghui left. 2 hours later, he returned with the jade spirit blood of heaven embryo, a treasure that could strengthen the core of the god nation. "Many thanks." Zhao Feng took the heavenly embryo jade spirit blood without any hesitation. He then entered the ancient dream realm. In the outside world, Zhao Feng's sudden disappearance caused the eyes of the 2 divine emissaries to flash. A divine kingdom? Bai Minghui stared at the secret chamber. "Relax." Not even a god king skilled in the space law would be able to teleport out of this dimension. The other divine emissary didn't care. In the ancient dream realm, Zhao Feng quickly finished refining the heavenly embryo jade spirit blood and stabilized the core. In the following days, Zhao Feng used the resources from before to cultivate other intents. Whenever he ran out of resources, he would make a request. The 2 divine emissaries immediately agreed to Zhao Feng's request. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. During this time, Zhao Feng had made significant progress. Previously, Zhao Feng had been preparing to leave after gathering some information. But the Heaven Lord had given him such good treatment that Zhao Feng was somewhat unwilling to leave. "My intents have recently made great progress. God Lord Dark North, please be my sparring partner and give me some pointers." One day, Zhao Feng made a request. "You want to fight with me?" Bai Minghui couldn't help but smile. He was a top-class 3rd heaven expert with the bloodline of the 6th-ranked heaven-mending race. Even though Zhao Feng had improved in many of his intents, he was still powerless against him. But Bai Minghui was forced to agree to Zhao Feng's request. Of course, Zhao Feng also imposed a restriction. Bai Minghui could not use his bloodline power. This was because Zhao Feng was currently only tempering his own strength. He did not want to use the Dream God Eye's power. "Let's go somewhere else." Bai Minghui creased his brow and left. The 2 then went to a specialized training room. The space inside was so tough that even a 3rd heaven god lord would find it difficult to damage. "Begin." Zhao Feng called out. Bai Minghui did not say a word as he circulated a mass of dark and chaotic god power and threw it out. Bai Minghui was extremely unwilling to engage in such a meaningless battle. He was beginning to loathe Zhao Feng. The divine power of a 3rd heaven god lord. Zhao Feng's pupils constricted as he circulated his Chaos Origin divine power and formed a Chaos Origin divine sword. Currently, his Chaos Origin divine power had reached the 9th level, with the exception of the law of space. He followed the flaws the Heaven Lord had pointed out and made up for them. Bang! His sword slammed into Bai Minghui's divine power. His arm trembled, and he felt a numbing sensation. He immediately released even more Chaos Origin divine power. Boom! Bang! Crash! Bai Minghui's divine power was shattered by Zhao Feng's attack, but the Chaos Origin divine sword was also shattered. Good. Zhao Feng was elated. Previously, his Chaos Origin divine power was only equivalent to the divine power of an ordinary 2nd heaven god lord. But after this period of cultivation and research, his divine power was now able to affect the divine power of a 3rd heaven god lord. Of course, Bai Minghui had only casually attacked just now and hadn't used much of his power. In the distance, Bai Minghui was startled. His divine power is actually somewhat similar to my Chaos Origin divine power. Bai Minghui's gaze darkened. Although he was absent-minded, he had clearly seen what had happened just now. The attribute of Zhao Feng's Chaos Origin divine power was somewhat similar to his primal chaos energy. Just now, Zhao Feng's Chaos Origin divine sword had even devoured a sliver of his primal chaos energy, so it was now somewhat resistant to primal chaos energy. To think that this kid could cultivate this kind of divine power. He truly is extraordinary. Bai Minghui was rather surprised. After exchanging tensome blows, Bai Minghui gradually began to exert more strength, forcing Zhao Feng to retreat and go back to absorb the insights he had gained from the battle. Even so, Bai Minghui was still shocked. In just half a year, his opponent had grown much stronger. Every so often, Zhao Feng would seek out Bai Minghui of his own accord to temper himself. Bai Minghui felt extremely vexed. He had actually become this kid's sparring partner. This was the greatest disgrace of his life. During this period of time, Zhao Feng made many requests for cultivation resources. One day, Bai Minghui found the protector. Protector, that Zhao Feng doesn't care about this place at all. He's making all sorts of unreasonable demands, ordering me and brother Dongfang around. In my opinion, this kid has no intention of handing over the ninth god eye. Bai Minghui recounted all of Zhao Feng's crimes. This is the Heaven Lord's order. The protector said without a second thought. The two divine emissaries also fell silent. This massive network of factions had only been able to develop to its current level because of the Heaven Lord's various decisions. The Heaven Lord must have his reasons for doing this. The protector vaguely said. The Heaven Lord had given Zhao Feng two choices, but he had not explicitly said them. Everything would depend on Zhao Feng himself. If Zhao Feng agreed, this price would be worth it, and when the time came, Zhao Feng would become one of their people. If Zhao Feng still did not agree after 2 years, only death awaited him. These actions had essentially lowered Zhao Feng's guard, making his plan to seize the eye even more likely to succeed. In short, the protector believed in the Heaven Lord's decisions. Bai Minghui and the other divine emissary returned to the secret chamber to continue watching over Zhao Feng. One day, the Heaven Lord arrived. Your Excellency. Bai Minghui and the other divine emissary respectfully bowed. At this time, Zhao Feng was still cultivating in the space-time robe. He was multitasking, one part of his mind focused on intent and law while the other on eye bloodline techniques. Zhao Feng, your attainments in eye bloodline techniques aren't bad, but there are still a few flaws. The Heaven Lord stared with a profound gaze at Zhao Feng in the space-time robe. Zhao Feng's expression flickered as he ended his seclusion. Zhao Feng was now extremely interested in this Heaven Lord, even admiring him for being able to establish such an extraordinary faction. BZZ. The Heaven Lord's eyes surged with a powerful and obscure eye intent. An eye bloodline? Zhao Feng was alarmed. He had always believed that the Heaven Lord was a member of the Heaven's legacy race. Did he have an eye bloodline? Moreover, why was the Heaven Lord activating his eye bloodline at a time like this? Chapter 1481. BZZ. A powerful and obscure eye intent surged out of the Heaven Lord's eyes. An eye bloodline? Zhao Feng was alarmed. The two divine emissaries in the back of the secret chamber were extremely excited. Even now, they had never seen the Heaven Lord personally take action. It was rumored that the Heaven Lord had already reached the peak third heaven, the God King level. It was even rumored that the Heaven Lord's strength far surpassed that of ordinary God Kings, even approaching the God level. Of course, these were just rumors. Now that they were seeing it with their own eyes, how could they not be excited? BZZ. The Heaven Lord's eyes became pitch black, like the abyss of death. Just a glance at them would cause one's heart to palpitate in fear. The Eye of Death? Zhao Feng was alarmed. At this moment, the Eye of Death that the Heaven Lord displayed was the most intense of all the eyes of death Zhao Feng had ever seen. If he didn't know that the Heaven Lord was a member of the Heaven's legacy race, he would have believed that the Heaven Lord was the god Eye of Death. The 8 great god eyes born after the ancient era were all at the god level. Gods were the strongest existences in the fan universe, and they could not be killed or their eyes stolen. But if it wasn't a god eye, it was definitely at the quasi-god eye level. Eye bloodlines also have their own attributes. The Eye of Death contains the origin energy of death. Only when you truly understand this energy and its essence will you be able to fully unleash the power of death. The Heaven Lord calmly explained. But at this moment, his aura and appearance underwent a heaven-shaking transformation. At this moment, his pitch-black hair danced in the wind like a demon in the pitch-black night sky. There was not a shred of life on his body, making him seem cold and unfamiliar. It was like he had become one with the Eye of Death, the representative of death. Although death and life oppose each other, the end of death is rebirth and the end of life is death. The two are closely related. As the Heaven Lord continued to speak, his Eye of Death began to fiercely ripple. Buzz. Bzz. Thick death law energy erupted from his eye, but under the Heaven Lord's complete control, it did not affect anything in the outside world. Once the death energy in the Heaven Lord's eyes reached a limit, his eyes suddenly began to shine with dark green light. In the blink of an eye, his entire eyes turned dark green. Zhao Feng's eyes widened in shock. The Heaven Lord's body was brimming with pure vitality, a vitality that all life forms yearned for. As for the Heaven Lord himself, he had become amiable and amiable. He seemed to have come from nature, like an ancient tree of life in an ancient forest. Eyes of life. Zhao Feng was shocked. The Eye of Death instantly turned into the Eye of Life. Moreover, the Heaven Lord had a thorough understanding of both eyes. The birth of life is invisibly accompanied by fate. The Heaven Lord faintly smiled. In a flash, his Eye of Life transformed into the Eye of Destiny. At this moment, he seemed like a wise man that knew all the secrets of the world, and he seemed illusory and unreachable. Just what? After the initial shock, Zhao Feng became even more solemn. He had never seen such a thing before. A person could have multiple eye bloodlines and use them as they pleased. Under normal circumstances, when 2 bloodlines were born in a person's body, they would either devour or fuse with each other. In addition, the Heaven Lord had already displayed 3 of the 8 great God Eye descendants' bloodlines. Zhao Feng couldn't help but speculate that he might have all 8 God Eye descendants' bloodlines. It was hard to imagine just how much power would be bestowed upon a single person with 8 bloodlines. Just what is his goal in coveting my 9th God Eye? Zhao Feng suddenly thought of something and was once more stunned. At this moment, he even recalled the legend of the ancestral eye. It was said that when the 8 great God Eyes fused together, one could summon the supreme ancestral eye. Of course, this was only a legend, and there was no way to verify its veracity. Moreover, the legend required the fusion of the 8 great God Eyes, not a God Eye descendant bloodline. However, all of this was just a legend. No one knew for sure what the truth was. Zhao Feng also couldn't guess at what the Heaven Lord was planning. Behind the Heaven Lord, the 2 divine emissaries were also stunned. The other divine emissary also had a God Eye descendant bloodline, but in terms of control, he was far inferior to the Heaven Lord. I still have matters to attend to. The 2 of you, continue to wait here for Zhao Feng's reply. After doing all this, the Heaven Lord left. In another secret base, Your Excellency Heaven Lord, that Junior still hasn't given you a reply? The Protector asked. A year had passed. He has no intention of voluntarily handing over the 9th God Eye, the Heaven Lord calmly said. The Heaven Lord calmly said. From Zhao Feng's performance and Zhao Feng's expression just now, he had long ago come to this conclusion. Then we should still. The Protector's expression turned gloomy. There's no rush. These resources are nothing to us. This person can be considered a genius, and I don't really want to kill him. The Heaven Lord interrupted the Protector. The Protector did not continue. The Heaven Lord could already tell that Zhao Feng had no intention of submitting. But for the sake of this genius, the Heaven Lord did not care about Zhao Feng's recent unreasonable antics. The Protector sincerely admired the Heaven Lord's magnanimity. After the Heaven Lord left, Zhao Feng continued his seclusion to study his eye bloodline. He had obtained many inspirations from the Heaven Lord. Dreamification. Zhao Feng used the origin energy ability of the Dream God Eye. In a flash, everything in front of him became dreamy and dazzling. The two divine emissaries also sensed this. At this moment, they felt extremely uncomfortable and indescribably restless. Zhao Feng used dreamification several times in the following period of time. The last time, the two divine emissaries even felt like their souls and divine bodies had inexplicably weakened. Within the space-time robe, the dreamification ability is even stronger than before. Zhao Feng opened his eyes, a faint smile on his lips. In truth, Zhao Feng's understanding of the Dream God Eye had only deepened, so the power of his other Dream Eye bloodline techniques had also been strengthened. In the secret base, the Heaven Lord and the Protector stared at the image on the white screen. The ability of the ninth God Eye? The Protector was completely focused on the screen. At the same time, the two divine emissaries messaged him, describing their various strange sensations. The ability of the ninth God Eye is rather complicated. It's not the same as the other 8 great God Eyes. The Heaven Lord's eyes dimmed. He had inadvertently discovered the ninth God Eye, but it was a little different from what he had imagined. In the secret chamber, do you have a space ancestral artifact fragment? Zhao Feng gave the two divine emissaries a crafty smile. Ancestral artifact fragment? Bai Minghui almost cursed. Fortunately, he was confident that Zhao Feng could not leave this place. Asking for the ancestral artifact fragment was just borrowing. 3 days later, Bai Minghui returned and took out a weightless white cloth that seemed to flow with golden jade. This was the space ancestral artifact fragment. With the space ancestral artifact fragment in hand, Zhao Feng immediately entered the space-time robe to cultivate. He primarily cultivated the space law, which determined his cultivation level. Moreover, space-time was 1. If he obtained the space law fragment, he might be able to break through the bottleneck of his time intent. Seated cross-legged on the ground, Zhao Feng circulated the Chaos Heaven Void origin technique and began to cultivate the space law. In these 2 months, his cultivation had improved a lot. Half a year later, Zhao Feng's time intent, aided by the time and space ancestral artifact fragments, broke into the law realm. And with the appearance of the time law, Zhao Feng's cultivation once more had room to grow. After another 2 months, Zhao Feng's cultivation reached the peak of the first heaven. But this also meant that his art was about to reach the peak. If he wanted to advance, he would have to find an art or create his own. But Zhao Feng was more inclined to find an art. He needed to get stronger as quickly as possible, and creating his own art would take up a great deal of time. The value of a second or third heaven art is immeasurable. Some powerful inheritances are no less valuable than an ancestral artifact fragment. Perhaps the only art suitable for Zhao Feng was the art of the heaven-mending race that Bai Minghui cultivated. Such a powerful art would be even more valuable. Divine Emissary Dark North, could you lend me your art so that I can comprehend it? Zhao Feng probed. Impossible. Bai Minghui was stunned at first, and then he angrily refused. But Bai Minghui sent this request to the Protector. Zhao Feng, unless you agree to cooperate with us, hand over the ninth God Eye and sign a soul contract. The Protector's tone was rather gloomy. Arts from the second heaven level were extremely precious, so he naturally could not give them to Zhao Feng. Moreover, he knew that Zhao Feng currently had no intention of cooperating. I'll think about it. Zhao Feng lowered his head in thought. But he had already given up on this idea and began to think of other ways. Several days later, given your massive faction, who knows how many precious books and records you have? I just happen to want to gain a deeper understanding of the ninth God Eye. Zhao Feng used the guise of the ninth God Eye to probe. Come with me. Bai Minghui rolled his eyes at Zhao Feng. This person truly didn't want to let go of any benefits. First resources, then precious fragments, and now he wanted to enter the Heaven's Legacy race's secret library. With the knowledge of the Heaven's Legacy race, there was probably no sacred land that could compare to this library. Zhao Feng quickly arrived at a massive library. All the books in this library were arranged according to their categories, covering a wide range of topics. You can only enter the 5th floor at most. Bai Minghui warned as he left. Without another word, Zhao Feng plunged into the pile of books. He first searched for books on the 8 great god eyes. He then browsed through various books. In the meantime, he looked up a few books on the heaven-mending race. In the wild ancient era, this was the territory of the heaven-mending race. In the ancient era, the heaven-mending race was here. The books that Zhao Feng looked up were the main areas of activity of the heaven-mending race, as well as the rumors about the heaven-mending race that had appeared in later generations. After looking through these books, he learned of 5 famous incidents in which later generations had discovered the legacies of the heaven-mending race experts. Combining this with the locations of the heaven-mending race's activities and related suspicious points, Zhao Feng quickly determined 3 locations. These 3 locations were all likely to contain the secrets and legacies of the heaven-mending race. After doing all this, Zhao Feng looked up a few things that interested him, such as the supreme ancestral artifact, the 8 great god eyes, and the heaven's legacy race. The books here were extremely rich in content, allowing Zhao Feng to gain a deeper understanding of the fan universe. After spending a month in the Heaven's Legacy Race library, Zhao Feng finally left. After several days of cultivation, Zhao Feng once more challenged Bai Minghui to a duel. In the training room, Bai Minghui coldly snorted, his eyes tinged with resentment, but he still attacked, unleashing a ball of chaos divine power. Chaos Origin Divine Sword. Zhao Feng fused the space and time laws, as well as many other intents he had comprehended with his peak level 1 Chaos Origin Divine Power, forming a Chaos Origin Divine Sword. Boom! Bang! Zhao Feng slashed down with his sword. The stalemate between the two failed to last, and then both sides collapsed. What? Bai Minghui grimaced in shock and solemnity. Just now, he had used 70% of his power in order to force back Zhao Feng. He hadn't expected for Zhao Feng to receive it. It had only been a short time, but Zhao Feng's progress was like the difference between heaven and earth. Chapter 1482. Bai Minghui was a top-class 3rd heaven expert with the heaven-mending race bloodline, but his divine power attack had been blocked by a peak 1st heaven junior. This made Bai Minghui even more depressed and infuriated. Again! Zhao Feng called out, his heart somewhat excited. The reason his Chaos Origin divine power had advanced so much was naturally due to the birth of the Time Law and the amplification of Level 9 Intense. Most importantly, it was the Space-Time Law. These 2 laws were originally one and greatly amplified his Chaos Origin divine power. Boom! Bai Minghui waved his hand, unleashing an enormous palm of chaotic light that shot toward Zhao Feng. This time, he was a little more serious and used 80% of his power. Die! Zhao Feng sensed that Bai Minghui's attack was much stronger than the last, so he put all his strength into it. The Chaos Origin Divine Sword in his hand swelled in size as he fiercely swung it. Boom! Bang! Many intents and laws circulated as divine power poured out. In the end, both attacks dissipated. What? This brat still managed to block it? Bai Minghui's expression darkened and turned even more solemn. Next time, he would use his full strength to defeat Zhao Feng. But Zhao Feng's next words left him fuming with rage. Let's end it here. Zhao Feng suddenly said and left the training room. He had only sought out Bai Minghui to understand what level his divine power had reached. Can I take a look around your territory? I'm very curious to see just how powerful your faction is. Zhao Feng asked after leaving the training room. Of course. Bai Minghui replied after a while. It was clear that he had been asking the protector. Bai Minghui and the other divine emissaries stood guard on either side of Zhao Feng, showing him around the divine kingdom. This divine kingdom had 3 Heaven's Legacy race cities that formed a massive mountain. At this time, Zhao Feng was standing on one of the mountains in the center. Along the way, many members came and went, passing through various buildings in an extremely busy manner. Even so, when the 2 divine emissaries passed by, everyone would respectfully bow. Who is this person? He actually has 2 divine emissaries following him. He might be an important member of the Yu family. Along the way, Zhao Feng heard a few conversations. The Yu family? What's so special about it? The Yu family is the surname of the Heaven's legacy race ancestor. The surname Yu is the surname of the ancestor of the Heaven's legacy race, the symbol of the purest Heaven's legacy race bloodline. Bai Minghui coldly snorted. The faction they belonged to was established by the third-ranked Heaven's legacy race, but Zhao Feng was so untactful that he still hadn't agreed to the Heaven Lord's request. Is it? Then the god's surname should also be Yu. The Heaven Lord is also the Yu. It was no wonder that the Heaven's legacy race had targeted him after he killed Yu Heng. It turned out that Yu Heng had such a special status. Yu Saint, Yu Emperor Tier Divine Chen Emperor, Yu Chen Heaven King King Yu He Chen Bu Chen Wu Emperor, Feng, Chen Beat Hui Hui. Feng Yu Hui Chen Beamed Hui. That's right, the Yu Heng you killed was the grandson of a certain Heaven's legacy race elder. Bai Minghui believed in the Heaven Lord's decision. Zhao Feng ignored him and continued to look around. In truth, he was already planning to leave. After all, he had already obtained enough benefits from this place. If he stayed too long, he was worried that something might happen. Before leaving, he had made this request so that he could obtain as much information as he could and understand the situation. He activated his left eye and could see many things that ordinary people could not see, things that the divine emissaries did not want him to see. He discovered that on the mountain to his left, there were many buildings, all of which were bases for cultivating precious plants. Zhao Feng could even occasionally see some rare resources from the ancient era. There was almost everything that could be found here. Of course, what he could see was probably not the most precious. The most valuable things were definitely hidden even more deeply. The majority of the buildings on the mountain to his right were related to bloodlines. The experts of this faction all possessed powerful bloodlines that would make others envious, but they were all transplanted. In addition, one could not just fuse with any bloodline one wanted. This was similar to the Heaven's legacy race city that Zhao Feng had entered. Before strengthening a bloodline, one needed to test it to see which bloodline was suitable. In addition, the chances of successfully fusing with a bloodline were extremely low. If one was not careful, one might explode and die. The core of the divine kingdom should be on the mountain in the center. Zhao Feng began to carefully examine the mountain. The forbidden ground in the back was completely indiscernible, protected by a powerful array. As Zhao Feng looked over, he sensed that there was a will in the forbidden ground observing him. Zhao Feng could vaguely make out an illusory robe. As Zhao Feng was observing, broom, the entire divine kingdom fiercely swayed, the heaven-earth yuan qi in turmoil. Several massive warships howled away from the divine kingdom. What's going on? Zhao Feng's eyes darkened as he began to carefully observe. Come, let's go back. Bai Minghui immediately called out as he led Zhao Feng back to the secret chamber. On the way, Zhao Feng saw many experts leaving the three mountains and flying off into the distance. Could it be that someone has discovered this place and is attacking? Zhao Feng guessed in his heart that it was about 80 to 90% correct. Perhaps this was why Bai Minghui immediately took Zhao Feng back, fearing that Zhao Feng would take advantage of the chaos to leave the divine kingdom. Zhao Feng did not resist and returned to the secret chamber. After activating the array, the two divine emissaries left in peace. In the outside world, several hundred figures floated in the gloomy sky. Almost all of these people were ancient gods, some even godlords. One of them was a white-robed figure holding a white fan, Tang Bai. Even higher up in the air was a white-robed elder with a translucent body and no aura. This old man has never heard of this mysterious faction. The white-robed elder muttered, "Buzz. BZZ." Ripples appeared in the air as black warships charged out. These warships were filled with automatons, as well as the higher-level death god guards. Several powerful god lords appeared. A black-robed elder stepped forward and calmly said, "What is the meaning of this from the gods sealing sacred land?" This black-robed elder was the first divine emissary Zhao Feng had seen when he first arrived at the pitch-black palace. I'd like to ask you what the meaning of this is." Why did you attack a god lord of my god sealing's sacred land and try to kill him? A third heaven god lord stepped forward from the god sealing race army. Next to him was Tang Bai. On the other side, Bai Minghui's face stiffened. This was his dereliction of duty. If he had killed Tang Bai, this sort of thing would not have happened. Within the Heaven's Legacy race's divine kingdom, the Heaven Lord and the Protector floated in the air. I didn't think that the people of the god sealing's sacred land would find this place. The Protector was rather surprised. Even if Bai Minghui had let a fish slip through the net, the people of the god sealing's sacred land shouldn't have been able to discover their hiding place. They were the ones who pushed for this. The Heaven Lord's deep eyes were emotionless as if he was lost in his memories. So that's how it was. The Protector nodded and said no more. The Heaven's Legacy race was not at peace. The fact that he had not immediately realized what was going on proved that Yu Tianwu had personally pushed for all of this. Go. Scare them into retreat and then move the divine kingdom. The Heaven Lord calmly said, and then he returned to the rear. The Protector swiftly left the Heaven's Legacy race divine kingdom. Within the secret chamber, it's time to leave. Zhao Feng faintly smiled. At this moment, a deafening explosion came from the outside world, causing even space-time to fall into disorder. It seems like there really was a battle. Zhao Feng mentally sighed in shock as he sensed the heaven-shaking energy. A battle of this level would involve at least a third heaven god lord, and perhaps even a god king. But this divine kingdom still showed no signs of being destroyed. From this, one could see just how sturdy the core of this divine kingdom was. You guys keep fighting. I'll be leaving first. Zhao Feng chuckled as he seated himself cross-legged on the ground. Bai Minghui had said that not even a god king skilled in the space law could move out of this dimension. But Zhao Feng believed that his thought teleportation had nothing to do with the space law. Back then, he had directly returned to the ancient desolate realm of gods from the outer continent zone. I'll take the space ancestral artifact fragment as a gift from you. Zhao Feng still had not returned the space ancestral artifact fragment he had borrowed. In the Forbidden Ground, the Heaven Lord could see what was going on with Zhao Feng. He saw that Zhao Feng was seated cross-legged on the ground. Believing that Zhao Feng was cultivating, he ignored him. Moreover, he needed to take complete control of the divine kingdom to prevent outsiders from sneaking in. He also needed to be prepared to move at a moment's notice. Boom, bang, crash. The tremors of the divine kingdom quickly subsided. In the outside world, the god-sealing sacred land was in full retreat. The white-robed elder in the sky grimaced and snorted. I hope that the Heaven's Legacy race will not make the same mistake as before. His opponent was the Heaven's Legacy race, and this was their territory. He had no chance of victory. And in that brief clash just now, he had been at a disadvantage. Following that, the members of the god-sealing sacred land all retreated. In a flash, all the members of the Heaven's Legacy race returned to their divine kingdom. At the same time, the divine kingdom quickly moved elsewhere. Forbidden area of the divine kingdom. Your Excellency Heaven Lord, sooner or later, the other sacred lands, including the gods, will find out about us. The Protector looked a little worried. You don't have to worry about that. The Heaven Lord flatly said, a sharp light flashing through his profound eyes. Your Excellency, Zhao Feng, the Protector looked at the white light screen not far away and was shocked. He disappeared. The Heaven Lord's expression darkened, and the entire region became extremely oppressive. The Protector stood rooted to the ground, clearly shocked. Could it be that the god-sealing sacred land or the sovereign made a move in secret? The Protector rolled his eyes and speculated. The Heaven Master was personally guarding this place, but Zhao Feng had still disappeared. This was simply too absurd. And the god-sealing Holy Land's attack just now was very likely related to them. However, even if it was the god-sealing sacred land, they wouldn't have the ability to do so. Thus, the Protector guessed that there was a god-monarch ruler secretly making a move. Chapter 1483. Tianhe Zone, outside the burning heaven sea, BZZ. The dreamy light twisted, and a figure slowly emerged from within. I've safely left. Zhao Feng stood up, his entire body relaxed. Although he enjoyed superior treatment in the Heaven's Legacy race's divine kingdom, he was still in enemy territory, and there were all sorts of unfathomable individuals. Zhao Feng felt rather oppressed every day. If not for certain benefits, he would have left the divine kingdom long ago. In the Heaven's Legacy race's divine kingdom, Zhao Feng had unconditionally used many resources, and all the intents he cultivated had reached the peak of level 9. His time intent had even broken through into a time law. His space law had also improved, allowing him to reach the peak of the first heaven. There was also the tempering he had with Bai Minghui and the personal guidance of the Heaven Lord. Zhao Feng's current strength was much higher than before. Of course, while improving himself, Zhao Feng did not forget about his subordinates. A small portion of the resources he had requested had been given to his subordinates and clones. In this period of time, Zhao Feng had moved the Black Destruction Dragon into the Dream Divine Kingdom, where it had quietly broken into the God Lord level. Of his clones, Zhao Kong was the most talented and had the Eye of Spacetime, allowing him to smoothly become a God Lord. The other clones were still half-step God Lords. In comparison, Zhao Feng taking the risk to stay in the territory of the Heaven's Legacy race was worth it. The Heaven's Legacy race was probably furious to death at this moment and searching for him everywhere. This thought made Zhao Feng feel very comfortable. Swish. With a sweep of his divine sense, Zhao Feng discovered that there were many more experts around the burning heaven sea than before. Because of the appearance of a third heaven god lord, the gravitational pull of a major battle, and the fact that the ancestral artifact fragment had been taken, the flames of this forbidden zone were much weaker, and the danger level had also decreased. Perhaps this was precisely why those experts who had not dared to explore this dangerous zone before now wanted to go in and explore. The news that two factions had gathered in the burning heaven sea to fight over the ancestral artifact fragment had long ago spread. Over 80% of the people who had entered were here for the ancestral artifact fragment. In addition to these treasure seekers, there were also the experts of the Tianhe Zone's Holy Land. They formed a strong team to search for clues near the burning sky sea. The destruction of the top management of the two 5-star forces had a huge impact on the overall strength of the Tianhe region. Therefore, the Holy Land was eager to find out the cause of all this. Perhaps there was some shocking secret hidden in it. Zhao Feng's figure disappeared as he entered his dream divine kingdom. The ancient dream realm had been successfully refined into a divine kingdom by him, and he named it the Dream Divine Kingdom. At this moment, everything within the divine kingdom was under Zhao Feng's control. Zhao Feng arrived next to the divine kingdom's core. Through the divine kingdom's core, he successfully controlled the entire divine kingdom and became the ruler of this world. Buzz. The heaven and earth Yuan Qi quickly gathered. Zhao Feng had created an independent dimension that had the same characteristics as the space-time robe dimension. In addition, this space contained the characteristics of the dream origin source. This also meant that the ability to make dreams come true could be used invisibly. The effect of cultivating here was even stronger than that of ordinary holy lands. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Zhao Feng took out a light piece of cloth. A space ancestral artifact fragment. Zhao Feng faintly smiled. At this moment, he was preparing to refine this ancestral artifact fragment. Zhao Feng, once you refine this space ancestral artifact fragment, you might be able to fuse the two of us into the space-time robe. The time ancestral artifact fragment proposed to Zhao Feng. Fusing the power of two time fragments into the space-time robe was equivalent to fusing the power of the ancestral artifact fragment into the space-time robe, greatly increasing its power. It can be done like this? Zhao Feng was pleasantly surprised. There was no need to mention the power of the ancestral artifact fragment, but if he fused the power of two ancestral artifact fragments together, it would naturally be even stronger. Fusing a time fragment alone into the space-time robe won't be very effective, but with the space fragment, it should be very easy to fuse and use. The space-time fragment added. Okay, let's do it. Zhao Feng immediately began to refine the space ancestral artifact fragment. With his previous experience and Zhao Feng's space law, It took him less than 3 months to successfully refine the space fragment. Zhao Feng then began to attempt to fuse the 2 ancestral artifact fragments into the space-time robe. At the start, the 2 ancestral artifact fragments had different attributes, causing them to repel each other. But the space-time robe could accommodate both ancestral artifact fragments. Gradually, the 2 ancestral artifact fragments fused into the space-time robe. At this moment, the space-time robe glowed with a dazzling silver light as if it had been reborn. All the damage it had sustained had been repaired. Of course, the ancestral artifact fragment was not truly fusing with the space-time robe, only temporarily residing within it. Space-time barrier. Zhao Feng activated the space-time robe and the 2 ancestral artifact fragments within it. In a flash, an ethereal layer of light spread out from the space-time robe and surrounded Zhao Feng. Vish! Zhao Feng thrust out a finger, unleashing a Chaos Origin Sword Bolt. The moment the Chaos Origin Sword Bolt entered the space-time barrier, it immediately slowed down and its power weakened. By the time it left the space-time barrier, the Chaos Origin Sword Bolt had completely vanished. Zhao Feng then tested the other abilities of the space-time robe. The results were all to Zhao Feng's satisfaction. In summary, fusing the 2 fragments into the space-time robe was equivalent to fusing the power of the 3 together. It was much better and more convenient than using them separately. Buzz. BZZ. At this moment, a strange ripple came from Zhao Feng's god altar. As his mind seeped in, Zhao Feng discovered that the god altar had given birth to a ball of chaotic and gloomy energy. While refining the ancestral artifact fragment and fusing with it, Zhao Feng had split off a part of his mind to cultivate primal chaos energy. A look of pleasant surprise appeared on Zhao Feng's face. When he was captured by Bai Minghui, he had activated his heaven-mending race bloodline and unleashed primal chaos energy to capture Zhao Feng. For this reason, Zhao Feng was no stranger to this energy. Although the heaven-mending race was ranked 6th, this primal chaos energy was even stronger than the origin energy of the 5th-ranked god martial race. As expected, when the Chaos Heaven Void origin technique is perfected, it can produce a sliver of primal chaos energy. Although there was only this little bit of primal chaos energy, it had been condensed from many laws and intents, making it extremely pure. BZZ. Zhao Feng used this sliver of primal chaos energy to form the Chaos Origin Divine Sword. Boom! Bang! The sword slashed out, and an enormous wave of primal chaos energy rumbled out. Moreover, this energy seemed to be unrestrained, and it even madly absorbed other energies along the way. Its destructive power was also extremely great. Boom! Zhao Feng had carved out a massive ravine in the ground, and the aura of primal chaos still lingered on it. The devouring power has become even stronger. After fusing with the primal chaos energy, the Chaos Origin Divine Sword had become even more stable, and its devouring and containment abilities had increased. Its power had also increased significantly. He estimated that after fusing with the primal chaos energy, the Chaos Origin Divine Sword would be able to contend against Bai Minghui's divine power without activating his bloodline. Bai Minghui's primal chaos energy could only be cultivated by relying on his bloodline. Zhao Feng, on the other hand, had completely relied on himself to condense it. Combined with the laws of space and time, if he attacked with pure primal chaos energy, he would actually have a certain advantage in terms of power. However, the fact that it had produced a sliver of primal chaos energy meant that the Chaos Heaven Void origin technique had already reached its peak. If Zhao Feng wanted to advance, he would either have to find a technique or create his own. The other method was to let time accumulate. Once he had accumulated enough resources, he would naturally break through. In truth, many god lords of the ancient desolate realm of gods used the third method to increase their cultivation. For this reason, they were all extremely old, most of them billions of years or even 10 billion years old. Zhao Feng naturally could not wait that long. The fastest way to increase his cultivation was to find a cultivation technique. Fortunately, I was able to find a lot of information on the heaven-mending race in the secret library of the Heaven's Legacy race. Zhao Feng smiled faintly. He was confident that the technique most suited to him was the technique of the heaven-mending race. Back in the secret library, he had combined all the information and determined that there were 3 locations that might contain the secrets, legacies, and treasures of the heaven-mending race. One of these locations was the Tongtai Zone next to the Tianhe Zone. Get ready to move out. Finding the heaven-mending race's technique had become his top priority. Before moving out, Heavenly Closure Seal. Zhao Feng used the heavenly closure sealing art that Tang Bai had given him to form a heavenly closure seal that began to seal away the power of his dream god eye. The Tianhe Zone's sacred body was currently investigating the disappearance of the god lords of the 2 5-star factions. If someone recognized Zhao Feng as the 9th god eye, it would be bad. Zhao Feng was confident that the Heaven's Legacy race had a network of factions in the Tianhe Zone. If the Heaven Lord knew that Zhao Feng was here, it wouldn't take long for a top-class expert to capture him. Now that he was in the hands of the Heaven Lord would definitely be on guard. Even if Zhao Feng had thought teleportation, he probably wouldn't be able to escape. Zhao Feng's dreamy silver hair gradually dimmed, losing its spiritual energy and becoming like ordinary hair of color. After sealing away the dream god eye, Zhao Feng also sealed away his cultivation energy. Only then did he leave the Dream Divine Kingdom and head for the Tongtai Zone. In less than half a year, Zhao Feng safely arrived at the Tongtai Zone. In a large exchange spiritual hall, Zhao Feng purchased a rough map of the Tongtai Zone. The target is near Pure Yang Palace. Pure Yang Palace was one of the 3 5-star factions of the Tongtai Zone. Its members cultivated the Yang Flame Dao and possessed extraordinary strength. The little thieving cat's reaction. Zhao Feng, who was just about to set off, suddenly stopped. Just now, the pet contract between him and the little thieving cat had suddenly sensed something. Although the reaction had been fleeting, Zhao Feng was sure that the little thieving cat was in the Tongtai Zone, and that it wasn't too far from his destination. Zhao Feng had left the Xiling Zone and come to the Tianhe Zone precisely to search for the little thieving cat. But he was only halfway there when he was disrupted by the ancestral artifact fragment and the Heaven's Legacy race. Wonderful! Zhao Feng faintly smiled. The little thieving cat had accompanied Zhao Feng ever since he arrived at the Broken Moon clan. After not seeing the thieving cat for so long, Zhao Feng truly did miss it. Chapter 1484. After confirming his goal, Zhao Feng set out for Pure Yang Palace. On the way, Zhao Feng passed by a large exchange spiritual hall. When he heard about the Heaven's Legacy race, he paused for a few moments. Did you hear? It's rumored that some time ago, a powerful faction of the Heaven's Legacy race appeared in the ancient desolate realm of gods? The third-ranked intelligent race of the 10,000 ancient races? When people heard about the Heaven's Legacy race, they were mostly awed. The Heaven's Legacy race was the third-ranked race of the 10,000 ancient races, the most intelligent race. They had once created weapons of destruction that could destroy the heavens and earth. They had even attempted to replicate a perfect ancient race bloodline, and they had even attempted to create a time machine to travel back in time and change history. Their various ideas left the 10,000 ancient races stunned. It was precisely because of this that their unbridled plundering and development had offended many ancient races. In the end, they were heavily injured by the combined attacks of many races and forced to go into hiding. He hadn't expected for news of the Heaven's Legacy race to appear after so long. It seems like that battle exposed the whereabouts of the Heaven's Legacy race. Zhao Feng speculated. Although he had been in his secret chamber at the time, he had been able to sense the massive disturbance outside the Divine Kingdom. It was impossible to conceal such a large disturbance. However, they only knew that the Heaven's Legacy race had appeared. As for what the Heaven's Legacy race was doing, they had no idea. After staying there for a while, Zhao Feng gained some understanding of the place. In his view, the Heaven Lord was an ambitious person, and the Heaven's Legacy race definitely had a goal that few people knew about. But Zhao Feng couldn't be bothered to care about all that. He only needed to increase his strength as quickly as possible to protect himself. Besides the news of the Heaven's Legacy race, there was also news of the 9th God Eye. People only knew that the ninth god eye had appeared, but they didn't know anything else. After asking around, Zhao Feng learned that the faction that had attacked the Heaven's Legacy race was the God Sealing's sacred land. Tang Bai's faction. No wonder. Back then, Zhao Feng had seen Tang Bai escape. Tang Bai's status in the sacred land was definitely not low. He must have told the sacred land about the ninth god eye. In other words, the God Sealing's sacred land had not attacked the Heaven's Legacy race for revenge. Their true goal was probably the ninth god eye. Because of this, the news of the God Sealing's sacred land's failure spread far and wide. After understanding the situation, Zhao Feng left the exchange spiritual hall and continued on his way. 10 days later, when he passed by a lake. Rumble. From afar, the earth-shattering sounds of battle could be heard. God Lord. Zhao Feng immediately deduced the strength of the fighter. It was extremely rare for God Lords to fight in the ancient desolate realm of gods. Zhao Feng activated his left eye and saw that a pursuit was taking place in the distance. What made Zhao Feng speechless was that the other party was approaching him. The person running in front had a head of light red hair and wore a golden robe. His face was upright, and he was a first heaven god lord. The pursuers were 2 at the first heavenly layer, and one of them was at the peak of the first heavenly layer. Furthermore, these 2 pursuers were surrounded by a dim stream of light, and their appearances could not be seen clearly. The red-haired elder glanced at Zhao Feng before flying away. Because Zhao Feng was concealing his energy, the red-haired elder believed that Zhao Feng's cultivation level was too low, so he ignored him. After all, Zhao Feng also had a very young appearance. But to Zhao Feng's surprise, the 2 god lords behind him viciously glared at Zhao Feng. This kid saw it. One of the god lords with a rather elderly voice called out. The moment he finished speaking, a massive palm of gloomy energy howled toward Zhao Feng. At this moment, the lake below began to churn, massive waves rising into the sky. Zhao Feng coldly snorted in displeasure. He circulated his Chaos Origin divine power and punched. Bang! This seemingly ordinary punch obliterated the God Lord's attack. This sight caused the God Lord who had launched the attack to tremble. I made an error in judgment, the other middle-aged man said. Good sir, please forgive us for our offense just now. The elderly voice spoke once more. They were in the middle of pursuing a God Lord, and if they provoked another God Lord, things would become troublesome. Thus, he immediately apologized to Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng saw that the other party was apologizing, so he paid them no more attention and prepared to leave. But at this moment, the red-haired elder's eyes flashed as he stared at Zhao Feng. Good sir, please save my life. This old man is willing to give you a large number of god crystals and resources. The red-haired elder's voice was tinged with a pleading tone. He was already injured, and there was a high chance that he would lose his life in the pursuit of 2 powerful god lords. Zhao Feng said nothing and turned to leave. He had no interest in the god crystals and resources of an ordinary first heaven god lord. Moreover, this was the business of another god lord, so it was not his place to interfere. Many thanks. Good sir, take care. The 2 people in the black light faintly smiled. Surrender. One of them immediately called out. Swish, swish, swish. A spear appeared in his hand, unleashing countless rays of dark light that made it impossible to dodge. Good sir, don't go. Pure Yang Palace will surely thank you for saving my life. The red-haired elder was in a perilous situation, and he once more pleaded with Zhao Feng for help. Pure Yang Palace? Zhao Feng's eyes flashed as his expression flickered. He was planning on going to Pure Yang Palace to take a look. From the various records in the Heaven's Legacy race's secret storehouse, he had concluded that the territory of the Tongtai Zone's Pure Yang Palace might contain the secrets, legacies, and treasures of the Heaven-Mending race. Pure Yang Palace would definitely not directly tell him some of these secrets. But if he saved a god lord of Pure Yang Palace, they would definitely do their best to help him. Zhao Feng suddenly turned to the red-haired elder. Good sir, please do not worry about this matter. Once we finish off this person, we are willing to give you half of the things in his interspatial dimension. The two pursuers saw that Zhao Feng had suddenly turned around and knew that the situation had changed. Zhao Feng appeared to be very young, at most of first heaven. Even if he and the red-haired elder worked together, they would still be no match for the two of them. But if two god lords worked together, they would not be able to do anything to them. Giving away half of a god lord's wealth was already extremely generous. After all, Zhao Feng had only run into them by chance. Good sir, Pure Yang Palace is a 5-star faction. When the time comes, I invite you to be a guest at Pure Yang Palace. If there is anything you need, just say the word. The red-haired elder saw that there was still a chance and added. At this moment, Zhao Feng was his only hope for survival. Get out of here. Zhao Feng called out to the two god lords shrouded in dark light. He had already decided to save the red-haired elder. What? The two pursuers were rather surprised. Even if Zhao Feng wanted to interfere in this matter, wasn't his attitude a little too arrogant? He was so young and only a first heaven at most. Even if he worked together with the injured red-haired elder, they would still be no match for the two of them. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Zhao Feng coldly snorted, chaos origin divine power surging out of him. At this moment, the world dimmed as all the energy in the vicinity gathered toward Zhao Feng. The two pursuers froze in shock as they sensed that something bad was about to happen. At this moment, Zhao Feng punched, and a dark fist image the size of a mountain rumbled toward the two pursuers. So strong. Only in the face of Zhao Feng's attack did the two of them realize just how powerful Zhao Feng was. Just the divine power in this fist image made the two of them tremble in fear, and they did not dare to take it head-on. Retreat. The two immediately made their decision. After all, with Zhao Feng interfering in this matter, they had already failed. Moreover, Zhao Feng was so powerful. Boom. Bang. The two worked together to use defensive techniques to barely block Zhao Feng's attack. The two then swiftly left. As for the red-haired elder, his mouth was wide open, and it took a while for him to recover from his shock. Many thanks, good sir, for saving my life. The red-haired elder solemnly looked at Zhao Feng. He had previously doubted Zhao Feng's strength, but Zhao Feng had scared away those two pursuers just now. For him to possess such strength at such a young age, he was assuredly a member of some sacred land. Didn't you just invite me to Pure Yang Palace as a guest? That's exactly what I was thinking. Zhao Feng faintly smiled. Since good sir wishes to go, Pure Yang Palace naturally welcomes you. The red-haired elder was rather surprised, but he still delightedly said. En route, Zhao Feng learned that this red-haired elder was called Ao Hongguang, an elder of Pure Yang Palace. On this trip, he had been ambushed and then encountered Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng still gave the name Zhao Wang and said that he was a god lord of the life-sacred land. This way, he could reduce the suspicion of the other party. The life-sacred land was very far away, and it had many god lords. The little thieving cat senses are getting closer and closer. En route, Zhao Feng used the pet contract to sense that the little thieving cat was nearby. As they advanced, Zhao Feng discovered that the little thieving cat was near Pure Yang Palace. The little thieving cat had the ability to perform divination. Perhaps it had already learned that Zhao Feng was heading to Pure Yang Palace and was waiting for him there. Just as expected, upon reaching Pure Yang Palace, Zhao Feng confirmed this point. Pure Yang Palace was situated atop a towering mountain range. Its buildings were golden and red and exuded a fierce and warm energy. In the central hall of Pure Yang Palace, the upper echelon members of Pure Yang Palace had gathered. The Pure Yang Palace master was a tall and slender red-robed elder. He was a second heaven with a rather powerful aura. There was also a middle-aged man, a first heaven god lord. This time I truly have to thank good sir. The Pure Yang Palace master expressed his gratitude several times. Pure Yang Palace had a total of 3 god lords. Zhao Feng saving the life of one of them could be said to have affected the fate of Pure Yang Palace. Good sir, if you have any requests, you can state them. Pure Yang Palace will do its utmost to satisfy them. The Pure Yang Palace master suddenly said. In his view, Zhao Feng had saved Ao Hongguang's life and had personally come to Pure Yang Palace for some reason. This Zhao truly did come this time for a matter. Zhao Feng paused for a moment. This matter concerned the secret of the heaven-mending race, so he could not directly mention it. He needed to find a different method of inquiry and investigation. At this moment, whoosh! An elder of the Pure Yang Palace came here in a hurry. What's the matter? Don't you see that I'm receiving an honored guest? The Pure Yang Palace Master was slightly angered. Palace Master, it's that cat again. The elder's expression was a little ugly. Chapter 1485. Palace Master, it's that cat again. The elder's expression was a little ugly. The word, cat, instantly enraged the Pure Yang Palace Master and he stood up. Palace Master, what's going on with the cat? Zhao Feng was now convinced that the cat of Pure Yang Palace was definitely the little thieving cat. A year ago, a cat came out of nowhere. It was rather strange and wandered around the Pure Yang Palace. At first, the Pure Yang Palace did not bother with it, but unexpectedly, this cat actually sneaked into the heavenly garden and stole and ate a lot of rare treasures. The Pure Yang Palace Master gave a simple explanation. In truth, Pure Yang Palace had sensed that this cat was unusual and prepared to capture it, but it had failed time and time again. The Celestial Garden was a separate space where Pure Yang Palace cultivated all sorts of precious resources. Later on, the thieving cat snuck in and ate quite a few treasures. Palace Master, that cat snuck into the Celestial Garden again. The elder who had just come in said, Palace Master, this cat is too crafty. There's no way to capture it. It's better to kill it and then drive it away. Ao Hongguang, who had some understanding of the thieving cat, suggested. Let's go. The Pure Yang Palace Master's eyes bloomed with red light as he angrily left. The group soon arrived at the Celestial Garden. This was a land of wondrous treasures brimming with yuan qi, and many priceless herbs and treasures were planted here. Once the god lords and ancient gods entered, they scanned the place with their divine senses and saw a silver-gray thieving cat holding a red crystalline fruit and eating it. Little thieving cat. Zhao Feng faintly smiled. The cat wantonly eating in the Celestial Garden was none other than the little thieving cat. The little thieving cat was slightly larger than before. It had probably harmed quite a few people after leaving Zhao Feng. That's a celestial fire true yang fruit, a treasure that only bears fruit once every 1 million years. The Pure Yang Palace Master angrily stamped his feet as he stared at the fruit in the cat's hand. 3 god lords surrounded the thieving cat from 3 sides. But before the 3 god lords could get close, the little thieving cat sensed them and swallowed the fruit. After that, it transformed into a streak of silver light and fled into the distance. After it, the 3 divine masters did not give up. Although the little thieving cat's speed far surpassed that of the 3 god lords, they were attacking from multiple directions. Moreover, the space here wasn't very big, so the little thieving cat couldn't possibly dodge. But in a head-on battle, the little thieving cat did not fear a first heaven god lord. Buzz. The little thieving cat extended its claws. Mysterious characters and diagrams appeared on its claws, and a layer of gray ice slowly formed on its claws. The little thieving cat suddenly appeared next to Ao Hongguang and swiped with its claws. Be careful! It's the power of the Icy Nether clan. The Pure Yang Palace Master reminded. They had fought with the thieving cat for a short time before, so they had some understanding of its abilities. Ao Hongguang snorted coldly. His body released a faint red flame as he punched out. Boom! Boom! Comparing the two, the little thieving cat's ice nether race power was stronger. Its powerful Yin energy not only corroded the Yang fire, but it even froze some of the Yang fire. But at this moment, the other 2 god lords approached the little thieving cat. Shoo! The little thieving cat left behind a blur as it vanished. Etche, you're injured, or else you might have been able to keep that thieving cat a little longer. The Pure Yang Palace Master sighed. Ao Hongguang had just returned, and his injuries had not yet healed. Junior brother, you seem to be injured as well? Ao Hongguang looked at the middle-aged man. This was the 3rd god lord of Pure Yang Palace. You might not know, but not long ago I was ambushed. Fortunately, I noticed it ahead of time and managed to escape with my life. The middle-aged man's face was filled with hatred. His injuries were more severe, so even after all this time, he had not completely recovered. Could it be Shadowstream Peak? Ao Hongguang speculated. Shadowstream Peak was a 5-star faction of the Tongtai Zone, and it had never gotten along with Pure Yang Palace. Kill it! The Pure Yang Palace master angrily snorted. The other 2 god lords of Pure Yang Palace had both been ambushed. This had already infuriated the Pure Yang Palace master, and now, this thieving cat had come to challenge his patience. At this moment, the Pure Yang Palace master had completely given up on capturing the thieving cat, choosing to just kill it. The 3 god lords charged at the thieving cat. Meow. The little thieving cat looked at the 3 god lords and pointed its head down, making a disdainful gesture at them. This made the 3 god lords of Pure Yang Palace even more furious. The little thieving cat transformed into a streak of light and vanished. How did this thieving cat get so fast? The Pure Yang Palace master was startled. The thieving cat was now much faster than before. After chasing it for some time, the 3 god lords were only able to keep up with the thieving cat, not injuring it in the slightest. On the other hand, the celestial garden was a scene of desolation. Of course, the 3 god lords had done their utmost to restrain the damage, but the little thieving cat had intentionally fled to the ground, so there was nothing they could do. Everyone, why don't you leave this thieving cat to me? At this moment, the distant Zhao Feng spoke. Brother Zhao, how could we do that? The Pure Yang Palace master dryly laughed, his face instantly turning red. A mighty 5-star faction had been reduced to this level by a thieving cat. Zhao Feng had seen enough of this joke. I'm a beast tamer. Dealing with this little fellow is my specialty. Zhao Feng added. At this point, if the Pure Yang Palace master still did not agree, he would seem rather unreasonable. Okay, I'll have to trouble Brother Zhao. The Pure Yang Palace master's expression froze for a moment before he agreed. They had previously contacted beast tamers to tame the thieving cat, but beast tamers below the God Lord level were also helpless against it. Beast tamers above the God Lord level were far too rare, and it would not be easy to request their help. They hadn't expected for Zhao Feng to be a beast tamer at such a young age. Zhao Feng immediately flew toward the little thieving cat. Brother Zhao, do you need our help? The Pure Yang Palace master asked. In truth, he didn't want to help. A God Lord beast tamer and the 3 of them were definitely capable of taming the thieving cat. But that way, the thieving cat would still be Zhao Feng's, and it would make them seem incompetent. They hoped that Zhao Feng would not be able to tame the thieving cat and would just drive it away. There's no need. Zhao Feng immediately refused, his speed suddenly increasing as his body became erratic. The Pure Yang Palace master faintly smiled as he thought to himself, youngsters sure are arrogant. But a moment later, his face went slack. So fast. Ao Hongguang's eyes flashed. At this moment, the speed Zhao Feng displayed was already extremely close to the little thieving cat's. Meow. The little thieving cat yelped in fear and hurriedly fled. Zhao Feng followed, his left eye surging with eye intent. Kaboom! A thunderous aura that could shake the heavens burst out in the soul dimension and attacked forward. The little thieving cat was affected by this soul intent, and its body went stiff as it began to fall. Before it could land, the little thieving cat steadied itself and fled once more, a look of panic on its face. But Zhao Feng was even faster. He once more approached the thieving cat, his left eye unleashing a powerful illusion Dao energy that engulfed the thieving cat. The 3 god lords were alarmed, but they said nothing. BZZ. Zhao Feng's illusion Dao energy engulfed the little thieving cat's soul and gradually brought it under his control. Zhao Feng walked up to the little thieving cat and sent his soul intent into its body. Of course, all of this was just an act between him and the little thieving cat. In order to convince the other god lords, he even had the little thieving cat struggle a little longer. A little while later, the little thieving cat opened its eyes. It appeared rather obedient as it crouched down next to Zhao Feng. As expected of a beast tamer, You really do have a way of dealing with strange beasts. The Pure Yang Palace master dryly coughed and laughed. Brother Zhao's beast-taming skills are extraordinary. Ao Hongguang couldn't help but sigh in praise. This cat has never had a violent personality, so taming it isn't very difficult. Zhao Feng immediately explained with a smile. Meow. The little thieving cat jumped onto Zhao Feng's shoulder, its lips curling into a crafty smile. Brother Zhao has helped Pure Yang Palace resolve another problem. For what matter has Brother Zhao come here? Pure Yang Palace will do its utmost to help. The Pure Yang Palace master added. Zhao Feng had helped Pure Yang Palace twice in a row, and he was also a god lord of the life-sacred land. Pure Yang Palace was already planning on befriending Zhao Feng and doing its utmost to satisfy Zhao Feng's requests. I've come to investigate a few matters. As for the specifics, forgive me for not being able to divulge them. Zhao Feng mysteriously said. The Pure Yang Palace masters nodded, believing that Zhao Feng was carrying out a secret mission for the life-sacred land. The group left the Celestial Garden. The Pure Yang Palace master immediately warned the others to keep the matter just now strictly confidential. The three of them had failed to deal with the thieving cat, but an outsider had done so. If this news got out, it would affect the reputation of Pure Yang Palace. The moment they left the Celestial Garden, the primal chaos energy in Zhao Feng's god altar inexplicably trembled. Zhao Feng paused in shock. It seems like the secret of the heaven-mending race might be near Pure Yang Palace. His gaze scanned the area, ultimately stopping on a gloomy space across from him. With his divine sense and space law, Zhao Feng discovered that there was a hidden dimension here. Palace Master, what's up ahead? Zhao Feng asked. Oh, that's one of the many trial grounds of Pure Yang Palace. It's for disciples below the ancient god level, and it's opened once every 100 years. The Pure Yang Palace master was rather confused as to why Zhao Feng was asking about this, but he still answered truthfully. Zhao Feng then suggested that he enter the library of Pure Yang Palace and look up a few materials. The Pure Yang Palace master immediately agreed, and he unconditionally opened up all his collection of books. Recently, two god lords of Pure Yang Palace had been ambushed, giving the Pure Yang Palace master an ill foreboding. When he learned that Zhao Feng wanted to stay in Pure Yang Palace for a while, he was naturally more than happy to do so. After all, Zhao Feng was rather strong. Even if Pure Yang Palace encountered a crisis, he might be able to avert it. Thieving cat, why did you come here? Zhao Feng messaged the little thieving cat. It appeared that the little thieving cat had not been idle while it was away. It had probably harmed quite a few people, or else its strength would not have increased so much. Of course, the little thieving cat's appearance and its cooperation with Zhao Feng in putting on a show made Pure Yang Palace trust Zhao Feng even more. Far to the east of Pure Yang Palace, a group of people stealthily advanced while concealing their auras. Humph, your two ambushes didn't work. The bull-horned elder leading them coldly said. The two god lords next to him couldn't help but lower their heads. When we were pursuing Ao Hongguang, we failed because another god lord suddenly appeared. A middle-aged man muttered. That youth is still in Pure Yang Palace. The dark-faced elder frowned. These two were none other than the two god lords who had pursued Ao Hongguang. With God Lord Cloudman's help, Pure Yang Palace is powerless to resist. We can eliminate that brat as well. The bull-horned elder snorted. They had ambushed the god lords of Pure Yang Palace twice, and although they had failed to kill them, they had heavily injured them. This was when Pure Yang Palace was at its weakest. If you lie to me about the treasure of the heaven-mending race, Shadowstream Peak can forget about having an easy time in the future. Behind the bull-horned elder was a woman dressed in a white cloud robe, her beautiful figure shrouded in a hazy mist. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.